Okay, so family planning, emergency planning. So kind of today, there's a lot you can cover. So this is a lot of information we're going to go over. It's almost like each category could be a whole day long class. So I'm going to try to cover the basics. Feel free to ask any questions. Pretty much did everyone meet John and Carrie? Everyone met them? Okay. So they're on their way here. They actually kind of a strange thing through the Nathan and Yvette Cox. So,
cool. That's awesome.
So yeah, they're meant to be here. Let's I just talked to them, they have a lot of knowledge, so maybe they can help us out in the future for sure.
Awesome.
So kind of today, we're not going to talk about a lot of long-term emergency planning, which definitely is a great start into that. It's going to be mostly like, I'd say like 3 days kind of type situations. But it's definitely a good step into the longer term preparation. So we're just talking about emergencies, like say like you're at work and a loved one gets in an accident and has to go home or has to go in the hospital, and you don't even, first thing you do is you're just going to the hospital. So you already have an emergency bag in there so you can make it one to get there, one once you're there, maybe it has a change of clothes, it has a toothbrush, some toothpaste, some things just to get you there, and then you have some stuff while you're there until you get settled and figured out who to bring that to you. So a lot of people, that's a kind of a normal, everyday thing that happens, and people don't really think about it, especially if you're like just moved here and you don't know a lot of people. So now you have at least something ready to get you through that kind of transition. Thing happened while you're at work or you're on vacation, something happened to your home and you can't go home. Like they said, your neighborhood's cut off. I mean, these probably 5 years ago, this stuff wasn't common, but we're seeing this stuff more and more. Trains derailment and chemical spills where people are either forced to evacuate their house, or if they're away from the house, weren't even allowed to come back to their homes. So this gives you just, again, it's at least get your breath of, okay, I got some water, I have enough food to get us through to figure out what the next step is, where we're going to go. Or you have to stay at work, you're at work, something happens, again, we're in crazy times. They just keep 10 years ago you would think, oh, none of this stuff's ever going to happen. Now it's just happening. There's threats of EMPs and we're constantly threatened of war lately, it seems like. But so if you're forced to stay at work during on a sudden natural disaster happen, and at least you have some stuff to kind of get you through until, again, you figure out what the next step is. You're somewhere and you need to get home, and again, maybe no one would have ever thought cell phones would ever go out, but recently we just had a whole cell phone outage for a day, and I don't think that's the end of it. I think that will increase more and more. So now we've still gotten so used to GPSs. Dave and Stacy got lost on the way here, or not lost. A tree was in the road, and they're asking me how to get there. I've been that way several times, but I've never looked at an alternate route. So I had to try to figure out on the map to give them directions, which I never asked you. Hopefully that helped along the way.
Yeah.
So just being able to read a map, for us older people, we learned to use maps. That's how we went someplace. So, but a lot of people have no idea how to use a map. Need to evacuate, you're at home again, a chemical spill, natural disaster, fires are coming, and you have to leave, and you have to leave right now. So if you have a plan in place for that, or you have a bag ready to go. Hopefully it's in your vehicle already at all times. We'll talk about emergency bags, but that's kind of some of the stuff. That's my idea of what today's going to be going over. That's those scenarios. So the rule of threes, very important, and I think threes is a good guideline to go by. Anybody that's fasted knows you can go more than 3 weeks without food. But 3 minutes without air, 3 hours without shelter in bad conditions. So if it's raining or anything, if you're not in shelter after 3 hours, it can be dangerous. Snow, of course, even worse. Cold weather, 3 days without water, and then 3 weeks without food. I've built up a reserve so I can go probably at least 5
Some of
6
us will.
And you have 3 days to get to safety. So even though these shelter places are going to be, safety is can be considered a lot. I mean, I just want to ask some people, what do they consider safety? Like if you had 3 days to get to safety, what are some ideas that you consider safety? Anybody? Home is one of them. Your house would be a safe place.
Any type of shelter that you can
Get on their roof.
you know,
Church typically is a safe place.
buildings.
Church, that's a good
You know,
one.
in the elements.
It's going to be dependent upon the circumstances as well. So
Nearby, maybe relatives that are within maybe 3 hours, 3 hours a day travel, something like that.
I mean, even getting inside of a car, depending on the situation, getting inside of a car, vehicle.
So that's all good. I think vehicle is more short-term safety. I think the idea of you have 3 days to really not live in a car. Like 3 days is probably pushing your limit of if you have to. A lot of people, Dario that lives with us, lived like a year in a car. So if you have to, but he also lived in a warm climate. So eventually, you're going to want to find some place that you consider safe, and it's getting that concept of where are those places that you consider safe, like neighbors, again, family members that live 3 hours away, 2 hours away. If you have a remote cabin, just establishing, or it could be just hotels, like maybe getting some ideas of what hotels that you might want to stay at if you had to get there, and know those places, know those phone numbers. Because what if the internet's down and you need to try to call them? Because anytime there's an emergency, all those things are going to book up quick. Anybody that's living in Florida when they have to evacuate, the longer they wait, the more further north they have to go because there's no hotels available along the way. Okay, so we decided we need to get somewhere either away from home or home, and we need to know how to read a map. Does anybody in here not know how to read a map? One? Good, Myra? You don't know how to read a map?
I mean, I can.
You can make do.
Figure it out.
Okay. Well, if you've never looked, how many people have never looked at a paper map? Anybody? Okay. So a paper map, if you kind of study it, it forgets to hand all these out. So let's hand these out first.
One thing that we learned, I love maps. So we learned is you used to be able to go into like Walmart and buy maps. You can't buy
Yes.
maps anymore, and atlases. So
Yes.
we need to get some and keep them.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. I was actually going to get maps, and for people like just a North Carolina map, and it's almost impossible to find maps.
Yep.
The Department of Transportation will send them to you for free.
Yeah, I was gonna. So if you go to, that's what. Why taking all my material? So yeah,
Visitor center.
so there is a website you can go to, North Carolina or any state, for that matter, is you can get maps sent to you for free or for 50 cents. I think if I want in North Carolina, they're like 50 cents. So they're not much, but you don't want to do it when you need it. So you want to do that ahead of time. So any state that you think of, like use YouTube for example, is if you think you would ever need to get to Texas, you're going to want to have maps all the way to get to Texas, or if it's to Michigan or wherever it is, you're going to want to have maps to know how to get there. They're also, if you can find them online, I have an old atlas book that's like a county map book, so it wasn't cheap. Also, RV places are good places like camping centers, Camping World. They sell map books also. So, but we had a book called County Map Book. So it's like you flip a page and it was the whole county. So it's just much more detailed of streets. So if you get a whole state map, obviously you're going to be very limited on how far down detailed you can get. It's going to be mostly expressways and highways. Or if you can get the cities, or we do not live in a city, so we're not going to have. So we're going to have a county map that actually shows roads around here. So, very good point that you should definitely get maps. There is ways to get them on the internet. It's just not as easy as you think it is. I thought I could go on Amazon and it's all their maps is pretty much down to one company, like Rand McNally, and they're not. I wouldn't say they're not cheap. They're not expensive enough to get on a personal level, but they're pretty pricey for. I was gonna get one for everybody, and it was pretty pricey. I forget what they were, but you can get, like David said, I think each state has a map that you can get for free or 50 cents, $1, something like that.
Visitor centers at the borders of states.
Do they still give out maps?
Yeah.
Okay, so visitor centers, if you go to visitor centers like the rest areas,
The
usually the
rest
first
areas
area.
you can get them. I don't know if they're free. Obviously, they're probably not free. But whenever you're traveling, if you
I know years ago, I'm not-
you probably pick up a map.
They used
to
to
go.
Be free and you can find all kinds of stuff, but now I hardly ever see that stuff anymore. So
The
Yeah,
phone,
man.
phone books used to have them. Remember the phone books?
Yeah.
Phone books used to have like.
You have to ask
Remember those?
Right?
So, some key things is the legend. So everybody should be able to find their legend on the bottom left-hand corner, and it kind of gives you what each part of the map means. Like, so if it's roads, rivers, landmarks, it's going to show you your direction. Kind of all maps point in north. So normally, and that one may not actually, but some like this map right here, you can see the little compass thing, but all maps face north unless they say otherwise. So whenever you're looking at a map, up is north. So if anybody doesn't know their directions, what does that mean for you? It's north, south, east, west. And then you can find north. If you don't know what north is and you're desperate, there's a couple different ways. Me and Stacey talked about this the other day. Everybody know about moss on a tree grows generally on the north side of the tree. So if you find trees, it's pretty close. Some will, depending if it's very shadowy, like it's dark woods, they can grow all the way around it. But if you kind of get to trees that are out more in the open, moss is always gonna grow on the north side. I would try to find 2 or 3 if you can to kind of make sure it's more of an accurate question.
Yeah, so basically, like, say this is a tree,
If the moss is on this side,
like
multiple trees, then that's north.
this side.
Yeah.
Then I'll know that's north.
That's north.
Interesting.
Generally, yeah.
So that gives you the direction. And then there's also, you can use a stick or anything, any kind of pole or anything, you actually put it in the ground and you mark wherever the shadow is. This only works obviously if there's sun, but you put a stone or whatever you can find to mark that first shadow and then wait 15 minutes to 30 minutes, mark the second shadow, and in between those two should be north. So that gives you an idea of if you need directions. You can also carry a compass. Definitely suggest a compass. That's more accurate and useful if you need to. But you need to know which way north is, kind of to know your direction, which way you're going to go from there. This is a scale. So this is going to be on every map. It's going to show you how to gauge how far the distances are. So one thing, back when I was a kid, I loved to read the map on trips because there was absolutely nothing else to do. So I would figure out how far we had to go. So I would take a piece of paper. It's going to be on a very big scale, but I would take a piece of paper. Anybody need pens?
Yeah, please.
This is simple sound.
Okay, anybody else need anything? One, two. So one thing I would do is, obviously this is not a much smaller square on your paper, but you can mark, like this is 0, and this is 1, 2, and 3. And then obviously between that would be a half. So if you take this is definitely not the scale, but you could take this and say from here to there is 3 miles. From here to here is a half a mile. So 1, 2, 3. So you can kind of gauge, take this, again with a scrap piece of paper, draw this on there, and then use it as a scale. You can also buy them, but this is a very simple method to do that. Does anybody have any questions on that? Everyone here knows how to drive, so you should understand the roadsides. In America, this is the, I remember myself now, even numbers go east and west generally. Even numbers of highways or expressways, and odd numbers go north and south.
I think it's the other way around.
The other way
Is
around.
it? No, that's right.
Is that right?
69 is east and west,
No.
75 is
No.
north and south.
Odd numbers are north and south.
Generally, you
Yeah,
said
generally.
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 69 is.
There is
North,
roads
south,
like, so for example, in
east-west.
Michigan, 69 goes pretty much east and west, but because it goes through other parts of the country, it'll turn into north and south. So it's,
I see.
even though it goes in other states, it's east and west, but generally, odd numbers are north and south, even numbers are east and west.
85 is really fun.
Even number.
East and west.
Because Highway 73 is north and south, right?
East, that is actually, yes, but it's overall, but there is some parts where it goes east and west. Again, generally speaking, that's how they come up with those numbers. Everybody knows how to read. These are very good things, especially when you're driving and you're just going on a road trip, you know how far it is to the next city. But these are very good things to know when you're trying to figure out where you're at. If like all of a sudden, worst case scenario, EMP happens or the phones happen, your GPS stops working, you don't know where you're at, and you got to get somewhere. These are things you want to look for. Okay, I know Fairbanks is in 3 miles in the direction wherever it is. So say it's east. I know in east and 3 miles Fairbanks is. So then I can go to my map and try to figure out how far away Fairbanks. I know I'm on this road because I just not too long ago I know I was driving on this road and I'm on this road, so I can find that road. I can find 3 miles from there, and now I know where I'm at. So, kind of go to the next slide. I got ahead of myself. So, figure out where you're at. If you're in a point where, whatever reason, you feel like you're lost, this is also in the woods as well. But we're just going to talk about roads today because that's a lot. What we're talking about outside of roads. Find your surroundings. Find your map. Get your map out and try to figure out your surroundings. Where are you at? Like a lot of times maps have landmarks. Like it's a hill. Like it'll say Mount Everest or whatever. I mean, it'll say something on there. It'll say a national park or a state park. So look for a surrounding what you can see the most. You may have to walk a little ways to find those road signs, like this, that shows something, or an exit. Like, you always see those gas station on exit, whatever. Try to find anything that you can get where you're at, to try to figure that out. Again, exit signs, crossroads, landmarks. Just start using your head of how would I figure out where I'm at on the road, and that's the first step. You can use, finding the closest city, like finding the closest city and then working your way back. If you're on your way to Atlanta, you can say, well, I drove this far. This was the path I was going. I'm got to be somewhere halfway between there. So you kind of work your way backwards to where your initial destination was. or work your way forward from where you came from. So hopefully everyone knows where they were going if you're out traveling or where they came from. Find your destination. So now we're going to look for where do we need to go. We're going to go, are we trying to get home? Are we trying to get to that predestination spot of, east of town, an hour away at a predetermined hotel that we had already told the family that we're going to, or our sister's house, or wherever it is? We got to figure that out. Again, a lot of people, I'm bad at this too. I mean, I know how to read a map, I know how to get directions, but I use my GPS. I went to school in Kannapolis probably 2 months before I finally like, okay, I'm not using my GPS because I have no idea how to get here without those roads that they're on. Like, it's all these turns and curves. I'm like, I have no idea how to get here without my GPS. So finally it's like, I'm not using my GPS, and just had to figure it out on my own with my memory. So it's very simple or easy to do to when you're without a GPS, we're so reliant on just typing it in. So knowing where we're going to go, so figuring that out, where we're planning to go, whether it's predetermined or we decided where we're going to go, finding that on the map. And then we're going to connect the dots. So we got to figure out, just again, trying to figure out on the map how we're going to get from A to B. I thought I put that map on there, sorry. Oh, I did. So if you're, we're somewhere right in here. This is where we're at right currently. And say I'm wanting to go to Monroe. Like if I'm going home and this map doesn't show my streets, my actual street that I'm getting to, and it's a familiar place, all I need to do is get to Monroe, because you're probably going to know once you get to Monroe how to get the rest of the way home, because things are going to start getting recognizable. So, we're going to come down. This says around 321. We're going to take that south, 85, 485 south, over to 74 to get to Monroe. And then from there, again, we should recognize where we're going. Now, this could not be the case if we're going somewhere that's not home. That's where the better maps, the smaller maps are important to have as well, especially if you have plans on where you would go in an emergency.
But that's all considering highways and roads being open and.
That's all considering highways and roads being open. So also, good point. So if you're making a plan and there's some kind of disaster and you don't know exactly what you're up, is to come up with a secondary, again, back to this roads, this is a very general map. So it's only mostly showing expressways and some small highways that aren't clearly marked what they are. But it's going to be hard to not follow anything but the expressways or these highway routes. So that's why it's important, more detailed maps, to come up with secondary locations. So say I'm going to come on 45 to get down here to Monroe, and this is closed off. My next step is I'm going to go on 85, or maybe I have to get off on another road to get around it. And it's just coming up with some ideas and know on the fly that you may have to, especially in natural disasters. I mean, I don't know how many people have been in natural disasters. I mean, they literally had one this morning. A tree was on the road, so they had to completely, not freak out, figure out, okay, how am I going to get, don't freak out and yell at your wife. How are you going to get from, how are you going to get back around and.
Did you knock that tree down so you can use it for this class?
Exactly.
Yeah, you know what's crazy? My GPS sent me a different direction today too than I usually come.
I want to know if David yelled at his wife.
No.
Is that why she went to sleep?
Internally.
That's why she went to sleep.
Anybody else have any questions on map reading?
I have a question.
Yes.
So if you look under Mecklenburg, between Mecklenburg and Matthews, there's like a number 11. Up under Matthews, there's a 7 and a 3. The little numbers, what are those for?
That is a good question.
Those are
It's not a
miles.
highway.
Come on.
Mile marker? The mile marker?
They're not markers, it's
Well, is
miles on that stretch of road.
Right. I mean, yeah, that's what I mean, like miles for, so from 2 miles from here to here, right? Yeah.
Okay.
But they also have them on the other roads, like between Mecklenburg and Matthews. That's 74 coming down there.
Yeah.
That's not 74, that's No, it's,
74 runs through and goes to Gastonia.
Right.
And that's 51 that goes across. Toward Albemarle.
What are the numbers in the white circle? The 51 under Matthews?
Those are state highways, right?
Yeah. State highways, you can see here, circles, should show them on here.
Yeah, it is state route, US
Yeah.
route.
State route, US route, yeah, there should, so anything in your map symbols should be in here.
What's the difference? Can I just like get a rundown of the difference between, I know what an expressway is, but then a state highway, a freeway, and.
So, like a
some roads are called
two-lane
county
road.
roads.
Highway 49 here, it's like a 2-lane highway.
Does anybody have a good answer to that? Cause I honestly don't. I know highways are usually bigger routes.
Interstate.
Yeah.
Not usually, highways can
And
not,
cross country.
yeah, they don't have to be interstate, so interstates are usually, have to have ramps. So expressways and interstates are pretty much the same, I think. And they usually, again, go multiple states, why they call it, I think, through the states, interstates.
And
Yeah.
county highways are 2-lane.
Yeah.
Usually.
Counties, yes, so
County
2 lane.
highways, like 49 would be 2-lane.
But there's a lot of highways that are actually 4 lane, but they don't have exits. So usually highways are roads that have, you still have stop signs, stop lights, but they can be multiple lanes. Like a lot of roads in, like when you go through highways, like 74, there's several places on 74 that is not an expressway, it's just a road that's like usually a split. It could be a split highway, it could be a split by an emergency lane or turn lane, or it can just be, it can be 2 lane. I don't know how the definition, but highways are usually more traveled roads. I don't know the exact definition, how they determine which one is which. Anybody know?
US states the same number throughout states where the state highway changes with each state. So you can have a 275 in 2 different states.
Right. So that's one. So you can. So if it's a expressway, the one number is going to be used through the whole country. That same road.
Like
So-
for like 85.
Yes.
Person, yeah.
So where if it's a
That's
state
the
road, like
interstate.
Audra said, it can, even though you're on 16 now, as soon as you get into South Carolina, they have the ability. It could be the same road, but they have the ability to change it to a completely different.
So Highway 49 she referenced runs through South Carolina and it stays 49 the whole entire time. When it hits Charlotte, it becomes Tryon and then it goes all the way through Mount Pleasant.
So I think there's certain roads that are federally managed, like the expressway, and then I think then the states get budgeted for how they maintain it. I don't know the exact how that works.
Highway 23 runs all the way up in Michigan, all the way down into Florida,
Yeah.
down through Ohio, West Virginia.
So I think highways are
Virginia.
kind of like, highways do stay the same numbers through, and then your state roads can change different roads. So they're usually, they may be marked as roads, like, so a state road, I'm trying to think of a good example, like 15. So the state road maybe 15, say 15. And even though you're on 15, it could also change street names, if that makes sense. So out here is 20, out here is a 27, goes through Lincolnton. But even though you're on 27 as a number, the actual road name changes throughout different areas. So the road name, so like it's up here, closest to us is Main Street, and then it turns into, I think like Huntersville Road or something. So I mean, it keeps changing, or Stanley Highway or something. So different, it can change even though the number stays the same.
The ovals are county roads.
Was that John?
Your example of 49 coming up to South Carolina and then becoming Tryon, if you follow it through Charlotte, you see it comes out the other side, north of Harrisburg, and goes.
Yeah, it goes to Mount Pleasant. You keep
Yeah.
going. Yeah, it
So
stays
it's still
49. Right.
So, yeah.
It just becomes local street names in different areas, but it's always Highway
They
49.
call that a state route number, and I think it probably was more accurately, it's called a state road, but it's an interstate highway system, but it's not the interstate
Right,
system.
gotcha.
Even though that was made up originally, the highways.
Right.
But I don't think they have the same uneven requirement.
Okay, gotcha. That could be.
Bill.
Yes?
One thing that we've noted that's different here in North Carolina is the changing of the names of the streets. That doesn't happen in Texas.
Yeah.
If you're on Belknap, you're on Belknap
Yeah.
forever.
Or if you're in Charlotte, the roads,
Oh, gosh.
you're on this road and then you have to turn left to stay on that road.
I was,
Or, yeah,
so that's a North Carolina thing. which is
you go
really
through an
good.
intersection, you go through a light, and it's a different name.
That's
So
definitely,
that's not true from state, my point is,
yeah,
not
states
every
can,
state does that.
and not just states, cities have the ability to do different. If you're in Hickory, the streets there could be like 49th Street, Circle Avenue. So there's like
Very
all, I
weird.
mean, it can have all of these different, it's just, so then you're trying to find, no, I needed 49th Street, Circle Drive, not Avenue, so it's almost exactly the
East
same.
and west and
Yeah.
south and north.
We first started driving into Charlotte in December, last December. The in and outer on 45, they said, what does that mean?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's unique.
That's what they'd say, inner, and I said, well, I don't wanna know inner, I wanna know, are we going north
North
or
or south, yeah.
they actually used to say north and south and people couldn't, they said that was too confusing, because then they started calling it inner and outer.
And that makes sense now that I know, but
Yeah.
I've never seen it before. I said, I don't even know what they're trying to tell me.
Yeah. Well, living here since '95, I'm just happy 45 finally got completed because it took them forever to.
Circle, so
Like where you guys live, that whole section of 45 was
the inner lanes,
not
the
existed
inside
from
lanes of the
77
are
to
always
85. There was no 45 for years and years and
Right.
years.
The outer lanes are always going.
So that was like-
It was gonna be, it's not been out of line
line.
for a long time. That was where 45 was when Allie was little. That was where you got off and it was like farmland that didn't continue. But then they built it up. They've been working on 45 since they started in the 90s.
It used to be a big voting subject.
Yeah, and it was when you're on this farmland and stuff.
Take the outer, you're gonna go north.
I remember
um,
it ending and getting all of it.
I think a couple suggestions I think also would be good. I think when, especially if people are camping or going trail, it's knowing like a topographical map because that shows height and stuff, so hills and mountains and stuff, so it's good. But also I think even on a more practical level, if you're trying to get somewhere locally and you don't plan on going anywhere far and you have trouble reading a map like this, is just going on Google Maps or something and copying, printing out, and then laminating that and putting it in a binder, you know, and just kind of marking that this is where I live and my
That's actually
parents live 5 miles up this way, and so having pieces of map, you know, like printing it out and then laminating it, put it in a binder.
So that's a very good idea. I mean, if anyone thinks about that, if you're going into a place, a city or whatever, is printing off that map, like Google Maps you can do, or buying it, but laminating a page, then you have that and have it in your car or whatever. So if something, you know, you're going to Charlotte, you have it in your car. If that's your normal place you go, you just keep it there. But say you're going to go to Atlanta and you want to print off some maps and then laminate them and then take them when you go to Atlanta so something happens. And then you can kind of, as you do this, you can kind of gradually build up your nice little map base.
And it'll show new roads, like they're constantly, you know, so I don't know how fast they update the maps, but they're building new roads all the time, and so the Google Maps will help with that, finding the new roads, the satellite images.
So the second thing David said was about topographical maps. So if you're ever planning on going hiking, it's pretty much just topographical maps are going to be more detailed and they're more oriented towards terrain. They're going to show elevation of hills, mountains, rivers, swamps. They're going to be more about kind of more the natural environment. So it can be very helpful when you're navigating, especially if you're on foot. I'd say topographical maps are going to be really geared towards being on foot or maybe ATV or horseback or something like that.
If you're outside of the city, of course.
Right. So it's, if you have to navigate, again, there's a lot to go into navigating by foot compared to in a car, because you're probably not going to stay on the roads. But
Or you can buy one of these.
yeah, there you go. Large scale even, so maybe you could read it without glasses. Nope, I can't. So yeah, so these are
Much nicer than folding it.
this is the whole country. So yeah, this is a very good example of what to have. Also, I like these with the binders because it's easy to fold over a flip book. This one, and then if you go, there's a state one that's similar to this that has county by county, so it's more specific. And a lot of times the county maps will also have your larger cities. It's not going to have Lincoln, but it's going to have Charlotte, probably Hickory, Greensboro, Raleigh. So they'll usually have the bigger cities in there as well. So definitely suggest this. These are probably, you remember how much you pay for this in 2021?
And 25 to 30 on it.
It's not super expensive. They're probably $100
It's
today.
worth
I don't know.
150 at least on sale.
But I highly suggest having something like this.
Mhm.
But you can print them off and laminate them as well. But these are very nice to have like that. But yeah, topographical maps, more detailed, more oriented towards walking. So yeah. Let's see what else we got. Anybody else? Any other questions on maps? Mapping or getting from A to B.
I think it's really good. It should be important because we don't know if we're going to run out of power on our phone, or the car dies somewhere in the middle of nowhere and there's probably not a house for 12 miles or something. Like understanding, being able to read a map, I think is important to have one in your vehicle for sure.
Yes. 100%.
I think it's wise to have it.
I'd say not
especially
only important, but I would just practice. Even people that know how to use maps, again, myself, I use my GPS so much that sometimes it's just try to get somewhere without using your GPS. Because whenever you have to use it, the stress level goes up. Your brain kind of starts getting a little foggy because now you're having to figure something out that you haven't done. So anything that you do stressful it's called muscle memory. So anybody that's ever done anything medical or military drills, anything that you do, you just repetitively do it. So when there's a stressful environment, it's muscle memory. You just automatically know how to do it. So you don't have to even think about it. Your brain will actually be able to do it. So map reading, just being able to do that, practice it, ideally I would say every 6 months or more is just try to use a map, try to get from one place to the other. It doesn't have to be far. Just next time you're just going somewhere, a 30-minute drive, just map it out and see if you can follow turn by turn.
Just going to Asheville one time, like I got up into the mountains and I was like, I don't have any internet in my map. It just froze. So that paranoia, like if I'd known to be prepared, it's
Yeah.
Anybody remember MapQuest or printing out
Oh,
pages
yeah.
of
Especially at
pages
night,
of turn by
up those
turn?
Some of us
mountains.
didn't have printers, so we had to write it all down.
Doherty Park in Pennsylvania, so from New York to Pennsylvania, my mom had us writing down.
When I was in Wisconsin, I worked for this furniture company. We were using maps, and the maps had, I think the letters on one side and the numbers on the top, and having to triangulate kind of where the address was by lining up the letter with the number.
1 million metropolitan.
Yeah, so that was fun. But even knowing that is good too. I'm sure all maps have that, the letters on one side and the numbers.
They do not, but
They don't?
No, I've just seen it on something.
I remember many arguments with my grandparents.
So that's on So what he's talking about is if anybody's looking for, some maps have a graph that you can look up a place that you're going, usually cities or towns, and it'll have, say, numbers on the left and letters across the right. And then you find your name of your city, and then you see what it lines up. So it could be like C3.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the map, you'll have your numbers along the map, right or left-hand side, or maybe both, and then your letters along the top or bottom or both. And then you kind of triangulate where that is to find the general location of where that city is. A very quick reference. Actually, this has it here, but I don't know how you find it, but it does have
It's
the.
in the back. I have all the tables in the back.
Okay, so this one does have, if anybody wants to see it, you go. All these cities, and each city has a letter and a number by it. And then you, across the side is letters, and then numbers. So say it was B11, here's 11, you go down to B, and then whatever you're looking for can be somewhere in this vicinity. So it's just it's a tool to help find things easier. You ever seen one of these?
On TV.
I've heard of them.
Back in the olden days.
I saw it when I went to the,
I saw it in the garage.
All right. So next is emergency bags. So I'm gonna tell the least expensive way to do emergency bag is to have one per person, one bag per person, and you carry it with you wherever you go, like in your car, your car. Not saying you carry it on every time you go in the store, which I have seen people do that, but have one per person, and then you move it from car to car wherever you're using it that day. The way we do it at our house, because I know we're never going to do that, is in my wife's Jeep, we have a bag that has both of our stuff. In her Yukon, we have another bag that has stuff for both of our stuff. And then in my truck, because my truck, I couldn't really fit a big bag easy, so I have two bags, separate bags, one for her, one for myself, so it's always there. She knows, I've told her, instructed her, if she ever needs to use that bag to walk, is that she's to go through that bag and she's by herself and get rid of everything that she doesn't, that's mine. Just leave it in the car. Because if she's by herself, you need to lighten that up. These are big backpacks. They take up space. So two people, backpack is probably at least as wide as this, about this big.
Like a hiking bag.
When she's wanting to put groceries in and home goods shopping sprees, it gets in her way. But when you don't have that bag, it's Murphy's Law. That's when you need it. So I'm adamant that she keeps that. I mean, it's very rarely that we don't have a bag in our car, no matter how inconvenient it is. Because we also keep, besides these are minimum items, we also keep bug spray. Things that we just use, like we're somewhere's house and there's mosquitoes and hey, we got some bug spray that we can wear at the lake or whatever. We got stuff that we just use. It's not like just in case. Now we refill it if we use something out of there, but you know, I've used water out of it. We keep cash in our bags. I've used the cash. You know, I'm somewhere and I just need some cash and I get it out and I just remember to put it back in.
Good to know.
We know
And now lock my truck.
We know to hit your vehicle.
He just said he loves his truck.
If you're in Amish country, you're always paying cash.
So the idea is if you're going to have emergency bags, now some people have what they call go bags and they just keep them at home. And if they have to go somewhere in emergency, they take their bag with them. Which, if that's all you're going to do, that's a good thing. But what if you can't get home and you need that bag wherever you're at? So again, it's a hassle. It's an inconvenience, especially if your car is smaller, to carry an emergency bag with you. But I highly, highly recommend having one. So here's some things to have in it. First aid gear. If you're gonna do like a minimum is if you go to Lowe's, Sam's Club, a good first aid kit is anything that's like made for a job site. So if it's a job site, because they have to meet basic OSHA compliance for first aid kits to have in your vehicles, they're gonna have them pretty much the basic necessities that you day-to-day need. Now, some of these first aid kits you get online or at Walmart, they like have a 1,000 little Band-Aids this big and maybe one this big and nothing else. So you kind of have to be careful what you get, you know, what you're going to use. So again, I like those job site OSHA first aid kits as a just to keep in the vehicle. We keep one of those in all of our vehicles outside of what we keep in our bags. And that's just what we use if we need it. We also have work vehicles for our business, so we keep them in there. So it's just kind of a standard thing. But we'll go through more through first aid. But you can get first aid kits pre-made. Like bag kits have lots of different options in these. Scissors. I think they call these penny scissors. Is that right? Kind of emergency scissors. They'll cut through a penny, so you can use them to cut clothes off, metal, whatever you need to. Gauze is tourniquet if needed. Band-Aids, lots of Band-Aids. Again, how many times you've been somewhere and you just cut your finger and you just need a Band-Aid, so it's just having a Band-Aid. Kind of go through the list, but 32 ounces of water per person should be in your bag. That's probably one thing that we lack.
That's 2 bottles, right?
Well, depends.
16 and 16.
Yeah, 16 and 16 would be 32. So this is enough for the 2 of us right here, for 2 people.
I drank that 2 days.
If you're going to be somewhere where you're walking for 3 days, and this is all you have, this is a day's worth right here. So you're going to have to limit yourself and figure out another way to have water. We'll talk about that. Contrary to belief, God made water and water does not go bad. Until probably 5 or 10 years ago, water never had a date on it because water never goes bad. It's water. It may go stale and kind of have like a little off flavor, but it doesn't go bad. So if it's out of date, it doesn't matter. This is a probably not a bad thing to have. Again, if you have this stuff in your car, you can also use it at home if you need to. So having it where you need it, and then you can also, so this is a water filter. It's called a water straw. You can actually put this down in a puddle and suck water out of a mud puddle or a pond if you wanted to. I highly suggest, this also has a little threaded cap. Most drink bottles or Coke, whatever, water bottles, whatever will fit in there. You can cut this off right here or just fill this up with mud puddle water or pond water or whatever water that's questionable. Always start with the cleanest water you can find, obviously, but if you have to, you can set this on there and let it drip into another container. That's the easiest way to do it because sucking water through a filter while you're laying on the ground at a mud puddle is not that easy.
You tried it? No, I'm good.
I have not tried it, but I have tried sucking water through one of these, and that alone is like, you're probably about to pass out by the time you
They're
do
like
it.
life straws. I have, they're really hard.
So they're just made, but
Lose your life straw.
you can drop it, you can put water in it, and it's just easy. It just gravity feeds and just drips water. It's just hard, you're just sucking through a lot of filtration because it's making your water so sick. We have another one. This is another water filtration. I think you can get these for like around $10, $15, something like that, maybe less. This is another type, same exact principle, except for you could fill this whole bag up with water, and you would put this, you could hang it up in a tree or whatever you can hang it up on. And then the hose hooks to here, this goes to the hose, and then this drips, then this drips down into the other container. So you can get a lot more water, probably more of a longer term solution, but it's an easier way to do it if you need to get water. I think it's an easier way. These are I think about $35 up to $100. Just depends on the brand that you get. Let's see. Water filtration. These are very small purification tablets. A 2-part. You went to come out of first class and know that we talked about these. It's a 2-part piece. You put one in, and put the second one in. After you stir it up, it just purifies. It'll purify pretty much any water that you need to purify. It even tells you, like, if it's really dirty water, you put, more tablets in. They're very small, lightweight. Again, water, we've seen before, 3 days without water, so water is very important. Food bars, we're not trying to get, fancy meals in this. This is just to get home. These are just food bars. We put them in vacuum sealers, not necessary, but it kind of tightens them up and makes the space smaller. Again, you're just trying to, protein bars are very good because they usually have high calories, high protein. They're just made for energy, so you can fit a day's worth of food, and probably each one of these could you can live a day on a bar if need be. Not saying you're not going to feel hungry, but you can give you enough energy to walk if you need to. Lighters and matches, tinder. Anybody not know what tinder is?
The dating app?
Not the dating app.
That's what I said, I said.
So tinder is just something to light, easy to light material, like kindling. But it could be dryer lint. Every time you clean out your dryer, hopefully you clean out your dryer. If you're not, it's a fire hazard. That is very good. That's very good to start fires with, so it's easy to keep. You can also, there's all kinds of things you can make. You can take matches, dip them in wax that waterproofs them, and you can kind of scrape off the wax, start it. There's lots of different things you can use for tinder, pocket lint, whatever. Cotton balls dipped in Vaseline are very good. It also keeps it water, but the Vaseline also burns it well, as it can be like a fuel. So very inexpensive. So anyways, you want to have something to start a fire with besides a lighter. Headlamps, flashlights also, but headlamps I think you can use as a flashlight, and it's just, if anybody's ever had to do something in the dark with your hands and you're trying to hold a flashlight and you're trying to work with your hands, it's not an easy task. So the headlamp just keeps your hands free to be able to do tasks. Or if you've ever had someone that holds a flashlight for you while you're trying to work and they're getting sidetracked, and I used to do that when I was a kid all the time. My dad's like, over here. Multi-tools, I don't, embarrassingly enough, I have a small multi-tool, but usually in my truck I have a multi-tool. So this is a small one, but a multi-tool is just there's all different sizes, different shapes.
Swiss Army knife.
Kind of like a Swiss Army knife, but I would say Leatherman, Gerber's are probably the biggest brands of them. There's a lot of other ones. SOS makes one.
They get pricey. Gerber ones get really pricey.
Right. So these can get expensive. You can find them cheap. Like Harbor Freight sells some, but they can be pliers. They have scissors usually on them. Probably the nicest thing about multi-tools is they have the plier function. Pliers, wire cutters. This is a very small set. I highly suggest people have one of these. It's called a Gerber Dime. I think you can get them for like $30 or something. You can keep them in your pocket. Women can keep them in their purse. But just carrying every day, just somewhere on you, this is very handy. Probably the only thing it doesn't have is a knife blade, unfortunately. So, but it does. But you can use it for everything else. Have any knife. A pocket foldable knife, I think, is the easiest probably to carry. I use this every day, but in my bags I carry a fixed blade knife. So fixed blade knife does not fold. This is a small one. This is my favorite fixed blade kind of all-purpose knife. The reason why you can fixed blade is they're just strong. Like a foldable knife, if you're really having to use it to pry or something, it's probably going to break at that hinge point. So this right here is your hinge point. Good for a lot of tasks, but if you're having to use it, really push on something or pull on something, this is going to snap. Probably pretty much any knife, no matter how good it is. This, you can really pry on it. It's solid. It's made of forged steel. This brand here is actually made in America, so it's very good. You can also use this if you ever had to make a fire. You can put this on a piece of wood. Obviously, it's a smaller one, so smaller. So if you're needing to make kindling, you can put on a piece of wood, get another log, and beat it on the top, and it will beat through and make. You can use it for kindling. This is kind of a more of a survival style knife. You can also wrap this with 550 cord. I haven't done that, but you can make the whole handle out of 550 cord. Anybody that doesn't know what 550 cord is, a very useful cord. It has little strands of cord inside of it, so you can actually pull them out and use it to tie things up.
Is it like a paracord?
Like a paracord, 550 cord, parachute cord.
Yeah.
But it'll hold 550 pounds is kind of why it's called 550 cord. It's a normal standard military cord. But inside of it, what makes it strength is it has all these little tiny cords that can be pulled out to be used for different things.
Kindling.
I'm sorry?
For kindling.
Yeah, for kindling. There you go. You could use it for that, actually. These actually come with a whole little survival little kit in here. The 550 cord. I think it has maybe some fishing hooks or something. So knife, cordage. We usually keep. Again, I think I grabbed the wrong bag, but we usually have a bundle of 550 cord about 100 feet. So 100 feet, 550 cord is very light and it's very thin. So you can carry a lot and it doesn't take up a lot of space or weight. And it holds, again, 550 pounds of pressure. I usually keep these in our bags. They're little bungee cords of different sizes. They just come very handy. This is from Harbor Freight, like $2. Tarps. Again, Harbor Freight. I carry these. If anybody's ever gone Harbor Freight, knows their deal. Sometimes you get them for free. They have like these little sales and they'll just give them away to you. This one, even when it's cost money, it's $2. It's a small tarp. I'm not going to put it outside and protect my firewood because it's probably going to be gone and the sun's going to destroy it in a month. But if I need it, if I'm having to change a tire to put on the ground or use it for a little shelter for 3 days, it's great. And they have bigger ones. We have two size tarps. One's a small tarp that we can actually carry with us and make a shelter if we needed to. Other is a bigger tarp that I haven't done the actual measurement of the temperature. We're just talking about this, but you can take your emergency bag. Say your vehicle is shut down and it's hot out. Anybody been in a vehicle when it's hot? It's hot. It's not starting. It's not air conditioning. So you can put a bag or anything that you have on your hood, on your roof of your car, and you're creating an airspace. And then you can take a bigger tarp, drape it over your vehicle, use your bungee cord, your cordage just to tie down the corners, and it creates that airspace above it. And I'm going to say, again, I haven't done an actual temperature rating, but probably at least 20 degrees difference, if not more. Keeping your doors open, draping that tarp over if needed to create a little shelter, temporary shelter, at least figure out what you're going to do. The family, like say it's your wife, and you got the kids with her, and they're trying to figure out what should we do? Should we wait here? We don't know what's going on. We're trying to figure out, get a game plan. It's hot. It's 100 degrees outside, and it's 130, 150 degrees in this vehicle. So we're just creating a little shelter just to calm down and get our thoughts together. So it's a very good way to do that. So we usually keep a big tarp in all of our vehicles. They actually have two sides. One's silver. The ones we carry, one's silver. I think one's brown. Other side's brown. We usually do the silver up, kind of reflect the sun off of it. Paper and pen should be waterproof. I don't have any waterproof paper in our bags, but it definitely could be helpful. But definitely having a pen handy to write notes. Write notes to leave for somebody to say, like, especially this is kind of wood knowledge, but if you're lost and you're going this direction and then now you decide you're going to make a sharp right and you want someone to potentially find you, you can write on a piece of paper an arrow or in a note, I went this way, help me. So someone finds it, they know possibly, or they're looking for you, that they know where you've been. If you don't have a waterproof, one of the things to carry is Ziploc bags. Very light. You can put your stuff in there. helps organize your stuff into categories, but they're also usable. So if you needed a Ziploc bag to put a note in because you don't have waterproof paper, throw your stuff out. I mean, back in your bag, don't throw it out. And then put your note in there, and then put it on the tree or whatever you need to do. But these are usable items. Same way with garbage bags. Garbage bags can be used for all different types of things. You can actually put all this stuff in a garbage bag and put it in your backpack, and it'll act as a waterproof bag. If you're walking and it's raining, all your stuff's going to stay dry. Has anybody ever made a poncho or raincoat out of a garbage bag before?
Yeah.
You just cut a hole in, some arms, keeps you a little bit dry. Usually sweat from the inside out, but
That's
My
good.
dad used to wear those to go running.
huh?
My dad used to wear those to go running.
Yeah, that's a good way to definitely sweat.
Yeah. Sweat, burn.
Well, you could use it for a coat, even if it's not raining. I mean, I don't know where we're at on clothes, but you should always keep a pair of, like a shirt. I wear flip-flops a lot, or sandals, or whatever you want to call them. So I have shoes in my car because I don't want to be walking, if I have to walk, I don't want to be walking in those. So, but I also carry pants because I usually wear shorts a lot. I usually have a long sleeve shirt. This is, in this instance, like one of those sun shirts, so it just keeps the sun off you. Again, when you're just walking from your car to the store, short sleeves don't bother you, but that sun's baking on you, you're gonna want to protect yourself. I just keep a pullover, a little bit warmer for the shirt needed. Keep hats, sun hat, like something to keep the sun off your head, or if it's colder. Probably the thing, and this is weather related, and this is hard in the South to keep up with, but is to have coats. If it's in the winter, to keep a coat in your car, because I'm sure it's the same way in Texas. It can be cold in the morning and then hot in the day, so you're like, oh, I don't need a coat because it's going to be warm in 3 hours. I'm going to be sweating. So a lot of times you don't have a coat in the car, and then what happens if you needed it, that something happened and at night you don't have a coat. So you don't need to carry a coat around in the summer, but it's a good idea to have one in your car, at least some kind of jacket that can be pulled over. You could also use garbage bag.
Stacy wears a jacket all year long.
Um,
Bring one now.
Personal documents. This is something we're definitely a weekend that we should put together, but is having a document that has maybe pictures, copy of your insurance stuff, maybe even your house insurance stuff, your house, anything that say your house is burning down or a forest fire is coming, you have a copy of everything that you need. Maybe your contents of your house that you may need for an insurance. Stuff happens all the time that you don't have any kind of record. How many people, if your house burned down today and they say, what did you have in your house? And can you remember everything that's in your house? So this can be paper documents. This can be a USB drive. USB drives are very handy, thumb drive, because you can also take pictures of everything in your house or a video. So maybe you don't need to take inventory, but you can kind of refresh your memory. Oh yeah, I forgot about I had this. Because our house burned down when I was a kid, and you have to itemize everything that you can think of on your list, and you have to try to remember what you had. I mean, we accumulate a lot of junk. Probably don't need to replace all of it, but they'll give you insurance money if you can remember that you had it, or prove that you had it. So any personal documents, not if you have a thumb drive, does everybody not know how to set up a password on your thumb drive? So there's a way you can set up a password. If you don't, make it simple. Don't try to make something that this isn't trying to protect it from the NSA or anything like that. It's just from someone getting your thumb drive and open it up and can't figure out a 4-digit code. Remember, make it something very simple that you can remember, or anybody in your family. If you have that, you can put copies of a picture of your driver's license, picture of your passport, again, insurance information, anything like that, that if you're able to get to someone's computer or something, you can at least have some copies if needed at a facility. Cash, we kind of talked about cash. Definitely have some variations of bills. I would strongly suggest having $100 bill. $100 can get you a lot of stuff. Like someone don't want to help you out, and you flash a $100 bill, and the way it gets their attention, they get real helpful quick. $20, $10, like another $100, but like in just multiple denominations, so you don't have to give up your $100 if someone's you're needing a candy bar for $2, and they don't have change because their machines aren't, working or whatever. Same issue. Toilet paper or toothbrush soap. Toothbrush. Again, this is something that I've used. I've just grabbed it out of my bag and just like, hey, I just want to brush my teeth, and just grab it out of the bag.
Bill,
Yes.
on the cash is really important. I was in Columbia, South Carolina airport, and the grid went down, and nobody could do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So you couldn't buy a Coke. You couldn't buy a bottle of water because
Do with cash.
but I had cash,
Right.
so I could, and we were actually sharing. I was sharing my cash because so the cash thing is really, really important.
Right. Who's you
And
sharing your
also-
cash with?
Just people that needed to buy water. I mean,
Yeah, there you go. So
Yeah.
there's a very good example. Spreading the love of Jesus because you're prepared, and she had cash, and showing kindness that probably a lot of people of the world would not do, and it becomes a place of being prepared can really show who Christians are supposed to be.
And also junk silver you should have a bunch of quarters.
Mhm.
Just the junk stuff,
Right.
not the good real silver.
Right,
quarters
yeah,
anymore.
don't give away
Just
your-
the junk silver, and that way you would have.
Yeah, so I like this good example. I mean, this is real life stuff that happens. I mean, does it happen every day? No, but she experienced a time that she couldn't have bought anything without cash. And not only that, she was able to help other people because she had cash. And that, that's what it's all about right there. This isn't for something that we just put away for one day that we hopefully never use. This is stuff that we can use every day to help someone out if we need to, or ourselves out, or our family out. So very good example to have cash, no matter where you go, not just in your bag. Yes, Myra.
I just thought of something that should probably be on this list too. I think it's jumper cables.
So this is more of an emergency bag, but you can do like vehicle bags, which we do have all of them. Some of our bags actually have a combination. So yes, definitely in a vehicle emergency bag is kind of separate, but yes, this emergency bag should have jumper cables. I think a little bit, even a basic toolkit. There's a lot of things you should have in your basic vehicle emergency kit. We keep air compressors in all of our vehicles, like small 12-volt cigarette lighter. They're very, very slow, but we've used them a lot to just, you're somewhere and your tire's low or you get outside. We were actually visiting my wife's grandkids in the coast. We come outside and we're there babysitting kids, and we go outside and the tire's flat. Flat to the ground. So we're either gonna have to get a tow truck. We don't know anybody there, or something to get this tire pumped up. So I got that little thing out. Learned that it was a piece of junk one, but it did put in about 15 pounds of air, enough that I could drive it to get it fixed. And then as soon as I got back to my computer, I ordered a better one on Amazon. But it did do the job that I at least was able to drive 5 miles and get the nail out of the tire and get it fixed. So there's a lot of good things you should have in a vehicle emergency kit. I didn't add that there, but we could definitely go over that as well.
Bill, I have it's called a Zeus Pro Jump Starter. So you can have jumper cables, but if there's no one to jump you, they serve no purpose.
Yeah.
With this, what I have, you could jump start a semi truck like multiple times. You charge it, of course, plug it in, but it also will charge like laptops and phones and.
Those are very good to have because again,
it saved me before in my truck.
Yeah.
Dead at a job site and no jumper cables, and I would start my truck.
Because again, they can act as a power source, not just start your car, but they can charge your phone, your iPads, different things like that. This is something we keep in our vehicles as an emergency kit. It's just, these are like, again, $3 at Harbor Freight. If anybody hasn't been on Harbor Freight, you should just go there. Some of their stuff's junk, but they have
It's
pretty
like a
cool
Tractor
stuff.
Supply, right?
It's a lot of cheap. They have a lot of cheap stuff. I mean, I'm not saying I would. If I was a mechanic, I'd buy my hand tools there. But if you're buying something, it's gonna do the job.
Get you to buy one type.
This little light here will flat. You can click it. Gives you like a flashing red. So if you need it, you're parked along the road, you can put it. And again, there's all different ones, but I think these are $3. It has a magnet. So you can actually, if you had to get under your car or something, you can actually turn it on and it'll magnetize something. It has a hook. Hook that you could hook it to something and actually give you a light. So I think sometimes if you're on their little mailing list, they'll have coupons for these. I'm pretty sure are free sometimes.
Be good stockings.
Yeah. This is another Harbor Freight thing that we keep in our vehicles. It's like a little lantern. Again, I think these are $3 or $5. And they're pretty bright. This is lights in here and it's still giving off light. And they're light. You can pass that around. It's very light to keep in your vehicle around. We keep them in our house. Extra. Again, they're really cheap. Toilet paper. This is a big roll of toilet paper. I would definitely suggest getting just a standard roll. This is probably like a jumbo size roll, and then you smash it down. Toilet paper takes a lot of space. They just smash it. I mean, if you ever need toilet paper in an emergency situation, you don't have no toilet paper rolls in the woods anyway. So we took vacuum sealed. Anybody that knows about vacuum sealed, they don't last forever, so you can see it's already lost this, but I was able to squish it. Again, squish it because it's going to take up. We're trying to save space, so this was probably a bit too big of a roll that we put in this bag. Nail cutters. Again, things you don't think about, but you think about. I get like split fingernails a lot, so I'm not trying to get a manicure or anything, but you're just trying to fix. What is it? Not manicure. Which fingers? Manicure.
Yeah.
But if you have like a hangnail or split fingernail, or you can use them as cutting tools as well. So sometimes it's just nice to build up. Have that, hats, socks, underwear, socks. I've used socks in my bag before because I had shoes with no socks, and then it got cold wherever it's at, and I just got my socks out and be able to use them. So again, this is day-to-day stuff that you can use it for. Pants. Top base layer, we talked about that. Some kind of jacket. I'd highly suggest a jacket that's waterproof. If you don't get one if you get one that's waterproof and doesn't have insulation, you can just kind of use it in layers, part of a layered kit, not being stuck with a heavy duty waterproof coat. Bandanas, very, very useful. I don't think I have a bandana in ours, but bandanas can be used for slings. You can put them around your head, tourniquet, face mask. Like if it's dusty or whatever, you can put them around your mouth. You can rob banks with them.
If you're in a gang.
Join a gang.
Beanies and gaiters. We talked about a beanie. Around here they call them toboggans.
Really?
Which toboggans, where I'm from, is a sled, but people call these toboggans. Or boggins. What about you, Audrey? You call them boggins?
Toboggans, beanies,
So having a hat.
Knit hat.
Anybody that has ever, most of your heat goes out your head.
Yeah.
So if you're cold, this keeps a lot of heat in. Drastically can change your life if you can keep your head warm in any situation. Even sleeping outside, you just have this on there. It's a huge.
We didn't get to be on Bob's. We didn't get to be on Bob's 13s down south.
What's a gator?
A gaiter is so they make different ones, but it's a neck gaiter, so it usually fits around your neck. So usually it can be from this side to this side. You can use for warmth. They also make them a lot of people use them for masks because they're just kind of fake masks that they didn't really do anything with.
Jamie had one and it was Trump. He would pull it up, but it was Trump from here down.
So they really, a lot of people use them because you could breathe out of them easy, and they suffice to people's masks rules.
Yeah.
But The gaiters mostly that I use, and we use these a lot in the military, is they're thermal. So they're like polypropylene gaiters. So you can put them on your neck. You can pull them up over your face. You know, they're like across your ears, across here. Then you have your hat over top of it. So you have covers a lot of exposed area. That's going to keep you cold, keep you from getting frostbite potentially. You can also, with the gaiter, is if they're long enough, you can fold them in half and roll the bottoms up and actually make a hat out of them. So they're very useful for a lot of different.
It protects the back of your neck too, like where your cerebral cortex is. When that sun's beating on you, man, you get heat stroke from that to protect the back of your neck.
Yep. Two-way radios. We'll talk about radios. Two-way radios. Again, we just had phones down. Even if you there's a lot to cover on two-way radios, but even being able to communicate with each other. Say there's an EMP attack, or your cell phones are down, and your car breaks down, and one person's going to stay in the car, one's going to go up the road, and it's your kid that you're leaving, maybe a teenager that you're leaving the car, or whatever, your spouse, and just having a way to communicate between people is vital. I mean, in the military, the first target is to knock out communications, because without communication, you can't do anything. So think about any time that you've ever not had your phone, you forgot it somewhere, it broke, and you're like needing to talk to someone, you're like, oh, I don't have my phone. Because just being able to say something simple, hey, pick me up my wife never takes her phone into the store with her. Drives me crazy. So how many times I would like to say, hey, don't forget this, but she doesn't take her phone, so I can't tell her that. So communication, very important. So if you don't have phones, a radio is a great way to.
Our only break from you is to go shopping. Give it.
What's that?
Our only break from you is to go shopping.
I was gonna say.
I tell her phone's more than just, it's a tool. Like, so what happens if someone's robbing the place and you need to call 911 or something?
Take pictures of things you like in the store. Put it on airplane mode, then she still doesn't have it.
A USB battery pack, David kind of talked about that, but you can buy those there's sticks, there's all different kinds of sizes of battery packs. They're like this big around, this long, so you can usually charge your phones for probably 4 or 5 times. You can charge an iPad. Radios, so these radios are actually chargeable with those battery packs. So having an extra battery pack and keeping it charged is very important. Having a dead battery pack doesn't help you out.
You can get adapters for your Milwaukee or the wall, and you can plug your phone into them. You know, we use them at Disney. Keep your phone charged.
Trash bags, we talked about Ziploc bags, zip ties. Again, gotta add some zip ties or something.
Trash bag, zip ties, and duct tape. What are you doing, Bill?
That's your life.
Sometimes you need them to keep those teenage kids quiet.
Yeah.
So zip ties, anybody that's ever used zip ties, thousands and thousands of uses of zip ties.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Literally can be.
holding up your bumper when you get in a
Yeah, handcuffs. Duct tape, I would not carry around a whole roll of duct tape. You can get off, this is probably like 10 feet of duct tape. You just pull it off and fold it over. Duct tape is heavy. Don't feel heavy when you're carrying it, but every ounce on your back feels like a pound after about walking a half a mile or more. So you just don't need a lot. You could carry more than this, but that's an easy way to carry duct tape without a whole roll of duct tape.
What about crazy glue? Crazy glue would be something good to have too. Can you put that over a wound or?
Definitely can use crazy glue as a wound.
Now is that flammable too? Is crazy glue flammable? I think it is, isn't it?
I want to say
It might have multiple purposes.
I don't have that in there, but it's always good because we always have that at home. We use it for everything. So.
And my brother cut his finger the other day when we were working, and I didn't have a first aid kit in my truck, and so like the crazy glue would have helped.
You have a first aid kit in your truck? Glasses. If you wear, like me, if you wear reading glasses, and I hardly ever have my reading glasses with me, so if you need them, and I needed to read a map, I would not be able to read a map, so I keep these are little glasses that they're a little tiny. Well, I just broke the case, but they're just little tiny glasses that can fit in here and they won't get broke. I think I got 3 of these on Amazon for maybe $5 or something. So if you need reading glasses, and you might need to read something or see something small, I would definitely have some glasses with you.
You get those things at Dollar Tree and General
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff.
Probably everywhere. I actually keep them. I keep one in my pocket for work because, again, I just don't like wearing my glasses, and I always need them. Anything else, or anybody else have? Here's some things we didn't talk about, but these are little. We actually sell some of these things, but this is a sleeping bag, emergency sleeping bag. Is it going to keep you comfortable when it's 0 degrees? No, but it will probably keep you alive. It's a reflective sleeping bag. So you can take it out. You can use it as a blanket. Again, you could use this. You got a game and it got cold, just watching the kids or something. You can pull it out and use it. This is a tent, emergency tent, reflective tent. Comes with a string. You put it between trees. I can't remember how much they cost, but we have some for sale back there.
So if you had to add all that up there, like from a cost perspective, let's say you went with, not the most expensive and not the most cheapest either, what would you say like a total for all that would be?
I filled a whole Amazon cart with most of this stuff, and it was about $150. And I wasn't trying to get the very cheapest, but I wasn't far from. I mean, you can get, you can spend $300 on a knife. So
For one person, is that, all that was just one person?
I'd say $150, $200 is one person. But obviously, this could be used for multiple people. Like say in our bags that we have 2 people worth of stuff in one bag. A lot of this stuff, I don't have 2. Trying to look at something like 2 things of cash. I only did enough cash for as of one. We only have 1 thing of toilet paper. I don't have a thing of toilet paper for each bag. So some of the stuff or a knife. But if it was my own, if you did it separate bags and you take those bags in and out of every vehicle, then you would want to have every single thing in that in one bag, in a separate bag.
I think that's a great idea. Just having that list and then waiting to see if stuff's on sale.
Yeah.
And just
I would just get on it. Make it, if you're going to do it and you think it's important, to make it a priority. And then get the stuff. I mean, a lot of stuff, again, at Harbor Freight. Some of this stuff, I started out with very cheap stuff. And then I've upgraded things as I went along. Willa's bags in her vehicles have better stuff than my stuff. I have certain things in my truck that I can survive pretty much with very little stuff, especially for 3 days. I don't need a lot of stuff for myself. I know how to make stuff and do stuff, so I have a good knife, and so I don't need as much. So I try to give her more high quality stuff, but eventually I will, probably upgrade my stuff as well. I just want to make sure she's taken care of if she's out and needs something more than myself. This is a poncho. We also sell anything that we also sell is also helping for this. So any money that's made on it. This is, I'm just going through some couple things here. We didn't really talk about this, but this would be covering first aid. So we have a vacuum sealed bag, has ibuprofen, Aleve, some stuff that I have vertigo, so I have some meclizine in it for vertigo. We have Tums, some Band-Aids, some dental floss. Then we just put it in a vacuum seal bag. So just some stuff that may be catered to you if you're on any kind of prescription medicine. You may want, just make sure you have, that's another good thing to have in your bag, obviously. If my dad is diabetic, he's going to want to have medicine that at least can get through those 3 days in a bag. Anything that you have to have, or you may think you need to have on a daily basis to think about. Triangle bandages. These I feel like are very important. It can be could be like a bandana, but again can be used for sling, using it for an arm sling, tying up braces if you have a broken leg. A couple of these and couple sticks, you can create splints. Same with arms. These can be just used for all different things. Triangle bandages, very helpful. They usually come with a couple safety pins. You can find them. They're, again, all this stuff isn't expensive and it's very usable for a lot of different things. This can be actually a water filter.
Yeah, I was gonna say you fold it multiple times.
You could actually, before you use this filter, if you wanted to clean up your water a little bit, you could actually get the debris portion out of the water and then use it for a water filter. Just be careful. I wouldn't drink water just as this a filter, but it would be a good start to a filter. Some people that didn't come here, the number one thing people die from a natural disaster after the disaster hits is dysentery from getting desperate and drinking bad water. So this again would not be, this is not going to clean water, but it would get the rough debris out so you could still then start.
So water is the most important because you can only go 3 days without water for,
Well, air is more important than that.
well, but chances of,
I know what you mean.
Earth losing its atmosphere.
This is something that we carry too. These are little, for like every day, carry around in a purse or something. Just a little pocket knife. So in this little, this right here, it's like the size of what they call those Altoids. You can actually fit this pocket knife and that multi-tool. And that goes right there.
Just don't forget it in your purse if you're going to the airport and getting on.
And you could also still fit some Altoids in there, but you could also fit some Band-Aids in there.
Yeah.
So maybe some Tylenol, some, whatever. Safety pins. Safety pins, pretty useful item. We actually have them in here somewhere. I think that's it. Unless anybody else has anything that they'd like to add.
I've been a registered nurse for 20 years, and in nursing much longer than that, and love the Lord. And most of my career has been in critical care ICU. So I started in ICU, and then I've also been wound care certified for my whole career as well, actually. Even before that, as a nursing assistant at 17 years old, just a few years ago, they needed somebody to round with the surgeon. And so even before I was a nurse, as a nursing assistant, I started rounding in a facility with the surgeon and absolutely fell in love with wound care. So critical care, wound care is my jam. And interestingly enough, it's very nostalgic to me, all of what Bill and Willa do, because my dad, my biological father, he is a Navy Seabee, and so he desperately probably needed a little boy, but he got me, a girly girl. But my whole upbringing has been literally all of this. He has taught me all of this. It's nostalgic. I'm looking at the baggies, my whole childhood was baggies, and there's first aid kits everywhere. I got a new one. There's 10 in the car, and he taught me gardening, and he taught me hunting and fishing and everything from a very, very, very young age, my whole life. And so filtering water, and it's just interesting in Wisconsin. So it's very interesting. I'm very into all of this as well, and so is my husband David. So thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for everything that you guys are doing. But it's interesting how the Lord ties everything together, and I'm actually grateful in the times we're living in for that type of upbringing. Even though when all of my little campground friends were in tents with their family when my dad would bring me camping, just him and I'm having to sleep in the Suburban with him. How embarrassing at 14. I'm thankful because they froze in their tents and I was toasty warm. So he uses it all. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the first aid part of things, and I hope I'll try not to be foggy. If something doesn't make sense, just let me know. Okay, so first thing we're going to talk about is assessing, controlling bleeding, treating wounds, and managing shock and transport. So assessing the situation, the most important thing, if you were to come into a situation, no matter what it is, When I was doing this, I think of my lovely husband, many, many years ago, multiple times, has at a scene of an accident. My wife's a nurse. And we kind of get brought into scenes of accidents. That's happened multiple times. So even in those situations, I'm not saying you do that because there's a whole Good Samaritan thing with that. Once you start, you can't really stop. But if you were to have to, you want to stay calm and be aware of your surroundings, right? So if you're thinking about different scenarios, say like Bill said, you can't get home, you're trying to get somewhere, you stumble upon someone, you come upon an accident, say there is a mass something, I hate to say that, but there could be. So you're staying calm, that's the first thing, do not panic. My dad, my whole life, first thing, do not panic, do not panic. You get stuck in the water, you feel like you're gonna drown, do not panic. I fell through the ice fishing with him, do not panic. I've gotten lost in the woods, literally, like when you were talking about the country roads, like he taught me all of that, doing the circles, but I've gotten lost in cornfields as a child and in the woods. Like, don't panic, stay calm, that's number one thing. And being aware of your surroundings. So primary survey, there's the ABCs, but there's the DRABC. So are you in danger? Are they in danger? Is somebody in danger? So thinking about that, if you come up on something, what is the proper response? Are they responsive? So you come up on somebody, they're down beside of a pool, right? So we're talking like CPR, this is one of the scenarios. They're down beside a pool. You look around, there's an electric cord. Okay, are they in danger? What needs to happen there? Are they responsive? Okay, and then is there an airway? Is there breathing, and is there circulation? So these are all things that you're looking at. If there's bleeding, controlling the bleeding, we're gonna go more in detail on some of this stuff, so this is kind of an overview. If there is a need to control some type of bleeding, you're going to apply pressure. We're going to talk about that. It may take up to 10 minutes for clotting to form. And then you might want to use elevation. And then we're going to talk about a tourniquet. Treating wounds, my favorite thing in the whole world. So in nursing, or in healthcare really, I always say, what can you do that you actually get to heal the patient, right? So unless the Lord uses me, and he has many times, to lay hands on somebody and they're healed of their diabetes, or they're healed of being paralyzed, or things like that, you don't normally in healthcare get to heal the patient. In wound care, you do. And I love that. So it's very exciting. I'm very passionate about it. So if you have a situation where you or someone else, or there's a mass casualty situation and you're treating wounds, what is the wound source? What type of wound? We're going to talk about this. Is there debris? Is there an object in there? What does the wound bed look like? Managing shock. So if there's a shock situation, again, we're going to go more in depth. It's called a Fowler's position. And so it's head down, legs up. And keep calm. That's the big thing. Avoid panicking and keeping your patient awake. And yourself. Not passing out. Transporting so if then in these situations, something that you could stumble upon, is there going to be a need to transport to advanced medical care or a higher level of care? Any questions so far? You guys are great. Okay. Types of blood and or bleeding. So an arterial bleed, and you guys don't mind my stories, right? So an arterial bleed, I'll tell you a quick story. One time when we lived in Lakeland, Florida, I was checking on a patient that I had taken care of her every day for many, many months. She had cancer, they had done a bunch of surgery, she had a big open abdomen, and so I would come and have to put what you call wound vac on there, which is a dressing that sucks, it's a vacuum dressing, and the blood circulates, and it works really great to close something if they can't suture it. Anyway, I had just put a new wound vac on her abdomen that morning, and she was a little Vietnamese lady, and she said, by after work. I have egg rolls for you. And I'm like, yes, I will. So I am off duty. I show up with purse in hand to get my egg rolls, and she's sitting up in the chair. I have no idea why. It was the Lord. I get my egg rolls. I'm literally clocked out, and I said, can I just look at your abdomen that I had been in 8 o'clock in the morning? It's now like 4:30. Weird, right? Like, why would I even do that? She was sitting up. She was fine. I look, and blood is just gushing. Like, her whole dressing was all blood. And I was like, we're going to lay down. I didn't want her to panic. And so, long story short, I peeled all of that back, and it was going whoop, 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 spraying, but with a pulsation. That's an arterial bleed. Bright red, and I could see even the little valves when it would spray like this. So my hand's in her abdomen. With my other hand, I call the surgeon, and I tell them to come right away. And I had my hand in her abdomen for like 30 minutes.
Ooh.
He came, sutured it, she was fine. Praise the Lord. I do think that the Lord did use me to save her life that day. But that is actually a very graphic but good example, so you'll always remember this, that arterial is going to be like that spurting, bright red. Venous is going to be a darker blood, okay? And that's more of a flow than a pulsating, okay? And then a capillary is oozing blood. Most like the cuts we would get on our fingers, stuff like that, it's going to be like that red, but it might be kind of like a watery red, because as soon as we get a cut, like a capillary cut, the white blood cells and all of that come rushing, and that comes with a clear fluid, and so that might turn it like a little pinky or like a lighter color of kind of a washed out in color. Does that help? So capillaries are the blood vessels at the surface of the skin. Okay, so when we're getting deeper, deep is our arteries, and then our veins. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. So techniques to control bleeding. So direct pressure. So when I talk about the lady, and I had to put my hand in her abdomen, that was direct pressure. So it's firm pressure with a clean cloth or a bandage. If you have that opportunity to have that, whatever you can grab, and it would be, so if they've got it profusely bleeding from their thigh, say for instance, you're gonna go a little bit above it. That makes sense? Okay. Fun fact, you can use flour, you can use cornstarch, you can also use antiperspirant deodorant to help the area clot quicker and to stay clotted. Okay, so if you have that, you can do that. Elevation, so you're going to want to, they've found, studies have shown that if you are applying pressure or even a tourniquet and you raise the limb or raise the area, it will help the bleeding to stop quicker, or the clotting to happen easier and quicker. So you want to raise it above the heart level, right? So our heart is here, our legs up here. I think everybody gets that. Okay, pressure points. So apply pressure to the nearest pressure point to slow the bleeding. And then tourniquet application. So you can make a tourniquet. So sometimes you can accidentally make a tourniquet when you don't want to. And I want to talk about that because I've seen this many times in wound care. So just in your everyday lives, not even if we're in a situation, but just bearing in mind if we are in a situation or in your everyday lives, and say you have a wound or you're helping someone, I see it a lot like on the lower leg, and you put an ACE bandage, okay? If you do not, sorry, I might have to be flex. If you don't include the foot part, you're gonna make a tourniquet. So a lot of times, I just helped a very young friend of ours, and he's diabetic, he's in his 40s, super active, super healthy, and a mutual friend was like, can you look at, he has a wound, and he's had it forever, can you look at it? I'm like, absolutely. We go over there for dinner, I look at it, I'm like, you're making a tourniquet. He's been dressing this wound on his inner ankle for, well, like 6 months. and he's putting an ACE rep, which is the right thing to do because he's got some venous valve issues, right? So he swells. But he's stopping it at his ankle, so his foot is swelling, and that whole thing just keeps reoccurring. So you could also cut off blood supply. So just be mindful in everyday life that you're not making a tourniquet when you don't want to. But when you want to make a tourniquet, you can use really anything. So Bill had some really good options. They don't, I know in movies you see like they take a belt and they're, especially the drug addicts, like they're making a whole thing. Not really recommended to use a belt. It would be better if you can take like cloth, especially with a little give to it. But if you have what you have, that's what you have. Yes.
Does ACE bandages also help with like external stuff? Because I remember you rubbed my ankle in the spring. Is that like?
But that was internal issue. You had an internal sprain, so you needed to support it. Yeah. So the sprain was internal, but we needed to support it so that it would take the pressure off a little bit. Yeah. Good question. So when to use a tourniquet? So that's going to be your severe, life-threatening bleeding. It's gushing. It's not stopping. Not a trickle. You'll know, and then that's when you're going to want to make your tourniquet, apply your tourniquet above. I think I'm going to talk about this next, and then you can even make a second one. So proper placement and tightening of a tourniquet should be, if you can make a tourniquet. So again, a piece of material. It really can be anything. Something with a little bit of a stretch is helpful. Like t-shirt material, whatever you have on hand, and you're in crisis. You're like trying to figure this out, right? But at least 4 centimeters wide, if you can, would be helpful. And then in the middle, so once you tie your tourniquet, if you can have like a table knife or a pair of scissors, or even if it's a stick, tie it in there and you can crank with that because you want this thing tight. You're stopping arterial flow. And then you're going to tighten it till the bleeding stops. And then if you need it, say I have a tourniquet here, it's slowing down, but it's still really going, I can make another one just above it. Does that make sense? Does everybody get what I'm saying about a knife or a stick?
Yeah.
Okay, you can just twist. And then you're gonna mark the time if you can. Like if you've got nothing to go off of other than like the sun, not much you can do, but if you have access to time, you're gonna wanna mark somewhere in your head, write down whatever the time that you applied it, so you can keep track. Any questions so far? Okay. Sue, yes.
How long is it? How long should you wait until you do something again?
Good question. So if you're in the crisis, that's going to warrant a higher level of care. So unless you're like stranded in the woods somewhere, you're trying to then get this person to a hospital. You're trying to get them to professional help, a higher level of care. If you're stranded somewhere and you've got, a tourniquet's going to cut off all blood supply because you're stopping the bleeding, but it's like, say it's here, my fingers are not going to have any blood flow. So you're going to want to assess the situation. That's why the time is important. Mm-hmm. You're going to assess the situation as to what the bleeding, has it stopped, and how long has it stopped for, and then you can maybe see. If it's a big gunshot wound, you're going to do as much as you can. But if it's like a stab or something, you can manage something like that. Yes.
Is there a time limit before the limb dies? Because it will numb whatever area, foot, hand. Like, is there a time limit as to before the limb just dies?
I don't want to just throw numbers out there, but people can go quite a while without blood. So time is brain. So this kind of a thing, that's a different type of situation. That's literally minutes. But on a limb, I don't want to just throw numbers out there, but it's not going to be like 2 minutes and that thing is gangrenous. You've got a little bit of time.
So what if you're in a situation where you can't get them the help that they really need?
Like frozen, stuck in the woods.
Do you loosen the tourniquet for a period of time to let blood flow a little bit and then tighten it back up?
So I would be assessing the situation and just exactly that. So if you get it to stop, I would let it be stopped for as long as you can. I mean, you're watching, this is gonna start getting pretty colorful and things like that. And then me personally, and what I would tell you guys to do is then you can, and Bill, you can say whatever you think too. If you absolutely cannot get them to a higher level of care, and you know, you're saving their limb, you're saving their life with the tourniquet,
Right.
you're more concerned about their life than the limb at that time. But if it does look like a reasonably safe situation that's not crazy, then I personally would probably, after a little time, maybe back off a little and just see what it does. But in this type of situation, we are more focused on saving the heart and the brain and the life than we are a foot.
Right.
Hate to say that.
So tourniquet is last
Stitch effort.
Last case, you're applying pressure. You cannot, no matter what you do, you cannot stop blood from pouring. So, because tourniquet can cause a loss of limbs, so just remember that. So this is
life-saving measure.
Keeping someone alive. You put a tourniquet on. The time is so when you hopefully can get them to advanced medical care, they know exactly how long that tourniquet's been on and what damage is possibly done to that limb.
Does that help a little bit though?
Generally, the limit's 2 hours.
Oh, okay.
In fact, when we do surgery, we use tourniquets all the time.
Are you a doctor?
Nurse.
Oh, you're a nurse too. Okay, awesome.
And there are surgeries that we do on limbs that take more than 2 hours.
Oh yeah.
And at 2 hours, we stop. They pack the wound with sponges and hold it tight. They may even wrap it.
I'm going to talk about that. Pressure dressing.
Drop the tourniquet. For how long?
Just a few minutes.
Not very long.
10 to 15 minutes.
Right, because it's not just the arterial, you got to get the veins to come back too.
But that's a little bit of a different situation.
Right, but then the one's turning right now. So, but I mean, my point is that they won't go under a tourniquet for longer than 2 hours because you can do permanent damage even in a controlled situation.
Yeah, and I've had patients with total occlusion that we've put in hyperbarics and things like that, and they've been walking around with like no flow for longer than 2 hours. But what your body does in those situations, that's an acute situation. In a chronic situation, what your body does is it builds capillary reserve, so collateral flow. So it will literally make other pathways, like even via the capillaries. And so I've had them like total occluded artery here, like they're not having flow to their leg, but like it builds its own extra reserve to give them a little bit of time. Different situation than the acute situation we're talking about. But I would say, 2 hours is a good number to kind of have in your mind and a stretch. But again, when we're in this situation, we're not as concerned about the limb as we are saving their life. Yeah.
I got one thing on creating your own tourniquet. So I had a tennis elbow, and I needed to work. So you can get these wraps that kind of put on the tendon that allows you to keep using your hand. Well, the more I worked, the more it still hurt, so I would just keep tightening that down, and I wasn't paying attention. So by lunch, my whole hand had just swollen, so I'd already created a tourniquet. It wasn't that I had to cut myself, I was just using a support too tightly and caused a tourniquet on my own hand, and my hand already started to drastically swell up that it wasn't allowing the flow to go. So you have to be careful just on other things besides an actual wound.
Yes, for sure. Okay, types of wounds, and I'm going to talk about pressure dressing in a second as well. Very good dialogue. I like the dialogue. So thank you. Are you both nurses? What's your specialty?
Mine?
Both of you. OR?
He was surgery. I was everything.
From med surg, ICU, all this stuff.
I kept looking for the perfect job.
Aww. But you didn't do labor and delivery?
Way back. At one point, yes.
That's cool. I was in the OR a lot with wound care. It's not my favorite thing. I like to talk to my patients.
Yeah.
But I have done a lot of really cool things and have seen a lot of really traumatic things. You guys are gems. That's so cool. Okay, types of wounds. So abrasions. So if you so you're thinking of like a scrape, a graze, like brushed up against something, took the couple layers, right? Road rash. Okay, abrasion. So you got the upper layers of the skin kind of messed up. Laceration is going to be a cut or a tear in the skin. And then there's big words we use that are called as approximated versus non-approximated. And all that means is, can you put it back together really nice? Where David's talking about super glue, which makes me cringe, but in a pinch. Because like, who knows what's underneath of there. And then, or like elderly patients, they'll get lots of tears on their skin and then are like rolled up skin and you can't. I've done some miracles with unrolling the skin, Audrey, you know, but those kind of situations you can't always reapproximate it. It's going to be kind of, it just needs to heal from the bottom up. But there are some clean cuts that is like, oh, okay, butterfly that thing, you can kind of, the body starts right away. And that's the thing too. Myra, can I share? Myra had a really, really bad cut on her finger a few weeks ago, and she was texting me and it's bleeding really bad. It's really deep, and she's like, should I go get stitches? I'm like, number one, there's nothing to stitch. And number two, once it's actually just a few hours pass. Like I've had people all the time like, oh, yesterday I cut it like so bad, should I go? No, because now we're not going to suture whatever debris is in there. It's stuck in there and we're going to have a problem. So then by now we're keeping it clean. And they'll tell you that if you go to the ER, if you wait too long on a cut. So again, in the types of situations where it's a laceration, again, control the bleeding. If it's not really bleeding, is it like, can we kind of piece it back together? If it's clean, because it'll start healing right away. And then if we can see if there's foreign objects in there or clean it out, I'll talk about this here in a second. Puncture wounds, so deep or narrow wounds, stick, metal, knife, bullet. Okay. Any questions there? One time we were on Lake Michigan, as in my rugged childhood, and my stepsister literally was just playing on the beach. This is like awesome parenting 101. My dad and my stepmom are out on Lake Michigan, like that's like an ocean. They're fishing out on Lake Michigan. We're by ourselves on the beach, and she was playing, and she comes up, and there's like blood pouring from her head, and like she randomly got shot by like a BB gun, and it like, yeah, and your head bleeds a lot. So, you know, in those type of situation, it punctured her head. Yeah, stick with me, I got lots of stories. Parents were out on the lake, it was super fun. Okay, so wound care steps. First, you're going to want to visualize the wound in the wound bed as best possible. You're not trying to tear that thing apart and like, how can I see in there? But if you can see, like, there's some bark or something that you can kind of, you know, you just don't want to be crazy with it and create more trauma. You're cringing the whole time. I'm not going to make you a nurse. Am I?
Don't worry, lunch is gonna be good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so visualize and clean the wound bed as best as possible with your limited things. Like, so we don't know what our scenario is going to be, right? So for cleaning, you're removing the debris, cleaning with sterile water if you have it, soap and water. I'm a big soap and water. Even in your everyday life, even when people ask me, okay, this happened to me, what should I do for wound care? Dial soap and water, literally twice a day. Does wonders, heals wounds really well. Saline, if you have it, mouthwash or alcohol, it's gonna burn, but if you have it, it will work. Perfume would be a little bit of a stretch, but it does have alcohol if you were in a desperate situation where there's looking like infection. Bandaging, so you're gonna cover the wound with a sterile dressing or a bandage. Again, in the perfect storm, you have a sterile dressing or a bandage, but if you have your first aid kits, you're gonna have some of that in there. But whatever you have in the situation, right, you're going to want to cover the wound with a sterile dressing or a bandage. Fun fact, in everyday life, a wound needs to be 102 degrees to heal. So I come from back in the day, so our skin is, what are we, 98.6, right? I come from back in the day, they said, get a dressing off of it, put a heat lamp on it, we need air and fans and heat lamps. And that's what everybody was doing. But for a long time now, that is not the best practice. So if you're in the camp in your everyday life, this is not talking about crazy, stuff happening, but in everyday life, that your wound needs air, no it doesn't. Moist wound healing is how we heal wounds. So a wound needs to be around 102 degrees to heal quickly and properly. So just like a regular gauze dressing, if I've got a wound or my parent has a wound or whatever, and I'm going to put a regular gauze dressing, does anybody want to guess what the temperature of that wound is going to be?
102.
Nope.
Just the gauze?
You're on the right track. 77, 78. Not going to do it. So that's why in best case wound care scenarios, we use foam dressings. Foam actually keeps a wound 102 degrees. So I know this is like, who cares? But if you have situations, we're not trying to dry it out is my point. We're not putting we need air, and we're not sticking a fan in a heat lamp. Okay, thank you. I'm off my soapbox now.
So if you have a way to make it warmer, that's best. Like, the
This is all you have in the woods. This is what you're doing.
that people, like, I know hunters like to use them or whatever. They're like little packs, and you pop it and it gets warm, and they'll put it like in their pockets or whatever. Yeah, hot hands.
Probably wouldn't do that.
And something like that wouldn't be.
No.
Yeah, too hot.
Now I'm concerned we'll do more damage because that'd be along the heat lamp
Okay.
type of situation.
Right,
But
you've got
it's
new
moist.
skin that'll burn.
Yeah, it's moist wound healing, keeping it warm, not drying it out, which is the point. Do the best that you can.
Mm-hmm.
In this type of situation, we're going to do the best that we can. So what I want to talk about too is you may need to make, like he was talking about, you might need to make a pressure dressing. I've had to do this a lot.
So we talked this before, like communication is very, very important. Some scenarios that your cell phone may not be working, emergencies, 9/11. I don't know if anybody that remembers 9/11 that was alive, probably not Myra, but everybody else.
Yeah, it was a 1.
You're one, you probably don't remember that. You're probably like the same age as my son. I think he's like maybe 2. So there was no phones. What happened was, it wasn't just that it knocked out the signal, everyone was trying to use the phone at the same time. So it completely shut down the whole cell phone network. Of course, we just, again, seeing cell phones go out because of a firmware upgrade, which highly doubt that was the problem. But
Correct.
What did you have your cell phone out? Because mine didn't.
what's your carrier?
Yeah, I think it was
T-Mobile?
So it's mostly AT&T and T-Mobile customers, and it did affect everyone, but the vast majority, I know several people at AT&T around here definitely lost it all over the country. AT&T, T-Mobile, even some Verizon towers if they shared AT&T's equipment. So, but mostly AT&T and T-Mobile.
And what did they say happened?
They said they uploaded a firmware update and it crashed their whole system. Which, being in technology, that's very rarely that you would just update a whole entire network at one time.
It was.
It was definitely
It was a tester.
it's definitely some type of, probably a hack. Probably a hack of, I mean, they've already hacked, I think it was just before that, they hacked all the pharmaceutical, like prescriptions, like doctors couldn't call in a prescription, like, they can, you have the doctor, they type it in and call in a prescription, they couldn't do that. Couldn't charge, you had to pay cash. I mean, they shut down the whole, whatever that software is, they shut that down through hacking, so. Yeah, so I don't know who did it. I'm sure somebody knows who did it, but we don't know who did it. So, two-way radios,
does GRMS stand for?
I do not know the answer to that.
I think you know the answer.
He said he doesn't.
I don't know the answer to that. I used to know the answer to that, and I can't remember offhand now. I don't know. Can't remember. But other things, fire, hurricane, tornado, earthquake that actually does take out the towers. You're out of the area. Like, how many people's ever just been out of the service area?
General mobile radio services.
Yeah, we work in, well, actually, the way that David and Stacy came here, there's pretty much no cell phone service for miles. There's like a whole road that there's no cell phone service.
Yep.
It's not that far from here. And we work around Lake Norman a lot, and all around the lake, there's no cell phone service. You have to go from the house and get up on the road. Something about the lake affects the service. So just being out of service in general. So having a backup way to communicate is important. So GMRS and FRS, we'll talk about that. So FRS radios are these little, pretty much these little radios you can get probably $15 for two. 30, 50, they're all different things. So FRS is family something services.
Family radio service.
Yeah, family radio service. Anybody can use them. You can just pick them up, buy them. They have usually, I think, up to 14 channels, something like that. You just pick, everybody just turn it on and go to the same channel and you're good to go. GMRS uses the same frequency bandwidth as FRS. So any GMRS radios is going to have the first 14 channels of the FRS, but then they have additional channels that are repeatable. So the repeatable channels, so say these radios, like that radio there on the box is going to say it'll do 15 miles and it probably does a mile, maybe, if you're lucky. So they always lie, and it's always best case scenario, no humidity, line of sight, nothing in between. And, yeah. So with the GMRS, you're able to, they have repeaters. So people, like I can say, I want to have a GMRS repeater, I'll put the antenna on the roof, and I can be a repeater location. So the more repeaters, so if I'm going to here, that repeater is going to take the signal and then broadcast it, amplify it, and go much further. So you're able to talk. I mean, you can talk drastically depending on the repeaters because they can repeat and repeat. So it's pretty much unlimited, I think, by repeaters on GMRS. I've only done one repeater station. I've never done multiple, so I don't know how far you can go, but it can be very far. So with one repeater, it's like up to 20 miles difference. So then 1 to 5 miles, just in between radio to radio. So terrain can impact buildings. So if I'm up here on this hill and I'm going to the house, it's like pretty good because there's not much besides some trees in the way. But remember, like rain in trees actually can create interference because water creates any kind of frequency interference. That's even Wi-Fi, rain can cause interference because it's just like the signal trying to go through water. So buildings, any obstacles for that matter. Frequency, so this is the frequency ranges for FRS and GMRS. Channel 22, sorry, so now it's, so yeah, there's up to 22 channels with GMRS. Mostly just talking about GMRS here. Yeah, and then you have eight of those channels are repeater channels. So there's those first, I think 14 FRS channels, then you have the 8 repeaters, which are kind of more or less the GMRS. So primary is like short range, medium range. People in the Jeep community that go out and Jeep amongst each other, like these types of radios are very popular in them because if they get in trouble, they can communicate out. So this is I'm going to show these radios. This is a chart that shows, this is the, like in your FRS or GMRS, like little basic radios like this, they're just gonna say 1 through 22. But the actual channels are this right here, this number right here. That's the actual frequency channel. So this is just a chart showing that. So if you're on these radios, like a more sophisticated radio, you're not gonna go to channel 22. You're gonna type in 467.725. Then you have ham radio. So just to back up, GMRS, most people do not have a license for it, but you are required to have a license for GMRS. It's a family license. It's like $35. It lasts 10 years. That license is good for your immediate family, your extended family.
It's so weird,
What's that?
like having to have a license for a radio.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's like they would track you down for having access to greater help if anything were to come down to it.
Well, in emergency situation, even ham, so when Ham Radio Next is licensed, it's mostly licensed so people, because it's mostly amateurs and it's a little bit more sophisticated, they don't want people on there just getting on there and just start cussing. And so there's actually a way to go to that person and say, okay, we're taking away your license, you're not allowed to. So that's why the laws are there. Is it good? I don't necessarily think so, but I guess I can see reasons why, because some people abuse it, and this is a way to have recourse. And it's FCC, so FCC doesn't mess around. It's substantial fines and jail time. But GMRS isn't necessary. No, anybody that's in an emergency, even if you use ham, if you have this radio and you're in an emergency, no one's going to get you in trouble for talking on that radio without a license. So don't ever feel like it's not. That's going to happen. It's more like you don't know how to do proper radio communication, or you're the person that's just cussing or holding your mic down so nobody else can talk on that channel. I mean, people maliciously do all kinds of crazy stuff. So they actually have ways to track down those radio signals, figure out somebody in this building is causing trouble, and they're going to figure out, do you have a license or not? And then if you don't, they're going to probably fine you or arrest you, possibly. In the ham radio world, they could. I think it's one person in the last 5 years has been arrested, so it's not like, it's actually monitored by, it's a federal law, but it's monitored by the users. So the ham radio operators are the ones that actually,
They're very passionate.
that kind of monitor that stuff. So there's some kind of zealous ham radio operators that are going to be like, you're not supposed to be on there, but most of them don't. I don't think most of them don't care as long as you're not doing anything maliciously. So don't be afraid to use it, I guess what I'm saying. And the GMRS, most people aren't going to do anything. The only thing you're going to be probably GMRS is if someone that has a repeater has the ability to not let you use the repeater. So if they say, what's your license, and you don't have one, they can stop you from using the repeater. But they're not going to come and arrest you for GMRS. GMRS is just very laid back, just a good medium signal stuff to use for your family. And again, $35, 10 years, and it can be used for your brother, your sister. I don't even know, extended family. I don't know what, you could say lots of people are extended family. So ham radio, if you really want to get into communications, or like to say a lot of people have like kind of their one person in their kind of group that's the radio specialist, like they may want to get into ham radio or explain it to people, but this requires an actual test. Like you have to know how to operate it. There's 3 levels of ham radio operators, so there's definitely more, it's more involved of knowing what you need to do to take the test. You have to pay for the test. I think it's a one-time, like if you're level 1, you take the test and you're the level 1 forever. If you want to take the level 2 test, you take that test. It's only a one-time test. But it does extend the range much further. So like 10 to 50 miles is a mobile unit, which is like kind of like, everybody know what a CB radio is? So think of a CB radio as a mobile unit. Handhelds are more like this right here. But with ham radios in the right atmosphere, you can talk to somebody in Germany. So the right things going on in the atmosphere, whatever. That's where before the internet, ham radio was very cool. I had a uncle, my dad's brother, that was in it. He would talk to people overseas, and Morse code is universal language. So people would actually Morse code each other and write down the dots, and just people were really into that stuff. Actually, since the radios have become more popular here recently, probably in the last 5 years, and I was actually reading since that cellular thing happened, it's like the sales on radios has went up like I want to say like 7 times just since that one thing.
That was something really big in our parents' era. My dad was built his own ham radio, learned all that stuff. We went to Ham Fest when I was a kid, so
God bless you.
that's where I got my training.
Oh, yeah.
Ham Fest. But my dad was really big into this stuff.
So yeah, they also have repeaters, so they can kind of go on and on and on. The good thing about ham is there's a lot of, in this kind of preparedness space, there's a lot of people that have repeaters and they build them to be redundant. They build them to be EMP proof, they build them with battery backups, so they really take it serious. If they own a repeater, they're making it for emergency situations. So it could be worth learning. Like I said, this is something I'm gonna get a license for myself. How to use a radio. So just basically, a lot of these radios, kind of using this cheap one here as an example. It has a power button. And right now it says channel 22. And it has up-down arrows to set the channel, so very basic. You have the push to talk. Push it, release, push and release. Has anybody not seen one of these type of radios? Larry, seen one of these before? Just these little radios you can get?
So you use the walkie-talkie like at work.
Yes.
Similar. Walkie-talkies, depending on where you work, they have their own frequencies that might have been issued to them by the FCC, so people can't jump on their channel, so it gets a little bit different. So you set the frequency, adjust the volume, and the squelch. Transmission is just push, so it's not a cell phone. You don't just keep talking, you have to push it, talk, release to listen. Push to talk, release to listen. Speak clearly, concisely, to the point. Like when you're on the radio, you don't want to just, again, that's what I'm saying, push to talk, release, because nobody can talk while you've got the button pushed and you're talking. So if you have an emergency and you're explaining, yeah, we were down at the creek and blah, 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 this happened and that happened and his leg's now cut off, I got a guy with his legs cut off. We're just get to the point because no one else can even ask a question. So radio etiquette is to always identify yourself. In ham and GMRS, you're supposed to use a call sign. You can use your own call sign. If you're if there's something going on and you want to be a little bit more, I don't want to say secretive, but just more private, you might want to come up with just a call sign for your family or, whatever. My last name is Eaton, so I may go with a military Echo because that's a military for E is Echo. So I might say my call sign is Echo, and then yours is Delta because your last name is Diaz, and Perez. So yours is Papa. So that could be your call sign, so people don't know who's actually talking. If you wanted to keep it that way. So whenever you respond for the first time, you usually respond with, if you said, you would say Echo, Echo, this is Papa. So you're calling out to me saying my call sign, Echo, and then you're saying this is Papa. So you're calling out to me, and then I'm knowing who you are because you're telling me who your call sign is. And then when I respond, I'm gonna say, this is Echo, go ahead, Papa. So I'm telling you back, I'm who you're trying to call, and you go ahead. I'm telling you to go ahead and talk to me. That's kind of proper etiquette, and there's reasons why you use that. It's just, especially if you have multiple people, if it's one-on-one and you're just using it local setting, not that important. But if you have, say, my parents just live a couple blocks over here. Say we have a radio. Say our neighbor has a radio, and then another neighbor has a radio. You want to keep some way to know who's who. And say I'm trying to reach this person. I'm not just like, hey everybody, and everyone's on the radio pushing the mic, and nobody can talk because nobody knows who you're trying to talk to. So you always want to call out to that person. Again, 2 people, not as important. Anything more than that is very important.
It's so crazy how like gradually over time humans created like what we have today. It's like at one point this was like such great quality, stuff, and then
Right.
someone came in and added to it and added to it, and then they put it in a car, and then they put it here and there, and it's just like wow, like.
Yep, it's crazy. I mean, if you think about the radio with the multiple people, it's like the old party lines. You know, the phone rings and you pick up, and if everyone just keeps saying hello, hello, and never gets off, like that, but it even works, but then you can't even talk. The stress calls, Mayday, Mayday, SOS, SOS. That's kind of universal stress calls. If you're just trying to, if you're getting out on a ham radio and you're on something you're not supposed to, but you're trying to reach further out to find somebody, these are universal words that they know is an emergency. SOS, SOS, Mayday, Mayday. Not one or the other. You don't say them both. And again, provide clear, precise information. Don't just tell them every detail. So signal and troubleshooting. Poor signal reception is just like that little radio there does not have the radios fixed, but like these antennas can be adjusted. So you can just make sure they're tight because you don't want them to be loose. You want it to have a clear connection, a good connection. What time? You can move to a higher location. We kind of talked about this if you're not getting communication with somebody, you can get to higher ground. Like if I was down at my house and I couldn't reach someone, I would probably come up here because I'm on higher ground. There's less land interference to happen. Ensure your radio this happens more times than not because you can just actually, especially on those radios, you can just accidentally hit one of the up or down arrow and go down to channel 7. It's on 22. You can actually go to 21 and you can't figure out why you're not talking to the person on 22 because you accidentally changed the channel. You get interference, so that's usually going to be happening more in the house, so just get away from the interference if you can. Battery problems, just make sure they're charged. If this is your emergency battery or your radio and you keep it especially in your vehicle, is to go ahead and buy an extra battery and make sure it's charged. And then make sure this battery is charged and make sure the power's off. So we've talked about the GMRS license. It covers in-laws, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, brothers, sisters, parents, grandparents, step-parents, children, grandchildren, stepchildren, spouse. So I mean, it pretty much covers everybody you know. So, in the charismatic world, we now have spiritual parents and spiritual children. So maybe it's covered. Then maybe they're covered also. So that was pretty much it on the radios. I didn't want to talk about these specific radios. This is a Bayo thing. So they do a lot of stuff. They're the FRS, GMRS, and ham all built into the same radio. This UVR, I think it's a UV5R. These are $25. This one has an extended battery, so it's a little bit more. It's a $25 radio, so that's it. And so there's no reason why somebody shouldn't have one of these radios. This was the first generation. They've been out forever and ever. These are the BFF8HPs. These are $65, $65. So still not much. They just have more wattage. Their tri-power, a couple other little features, but mainly is you can adjust the power, the wattages up and down. So, but either way, not that much money, even for $60. But $25, there's no reason. So this just has less range than this.
They could have more with that massive antenna.
Right.
So these are just different antenna options. This is like the standard antenna you get. Just different. This antenna actually gets similar to this antenna. You can get these antennas here, and it'll actually fold out
Wow.
and get it like a longer range. So say you're in here and you can kind of hear someone, you can kind of lift it up and just, so you're maybe just getting that extra height above something that's blocking a signal. Does anybody want to maybe get in the groups and just practice talking on the radios? Has anyone ever talked on the radio?
Walkie-talkies when I was a kid, that was about it. Do
Big
they
stuff.
work even like after an EMP?
So it's hard to say. Nobody knows. There's lots of different scenarios. Some probably if your EMP is close enough, there will be nothing absolutely that works. A lot of people, some people think if the power's turned off, it possibly could keep it protected. Probably the best thing if you're worried about EMP is to keep them in Faraday. They call them Faraday bags. So they're actually put them in there. You seal them, and they're just bags you can actually store them in. You can store them in your car. They make all different sizes, from this size to big. Some people will keep stuff in trash, like metal trash cans, and that acts as a Faraday cage that keeps protection. Faraday is just, it just protects against EMPs, pretty much, or surge, any kind of surges that would happen through the air. So Faraday is a type of, I don't know what it stands for, but it just protects it from EMPs, nuclear causes EMPs. So pretty much what it's protecting.
Faraday was the guy's name.
Is it really?
Is it B or B?
F-A-R-R-A-D-A-Y.
Christian inventor.
Really?
Yeah, he's fabulous.
Huh.
He figured out the electromagnetic system.
Well, he did a lot of electrical stuff, but the Faraday bag comes from the idea of a capacitor.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know how a capacitor is made. It's two sheets of metal with an air space between them, and that blocks the flow of electricity. Of the electricity. And so you use capacitors to direct the electricity where you want it to go in a circuit board. However, in a Faraday bag, it gives you an electrical, it gives you a shield that's like a capacitor surface. And so the current, the
Signal.
the electromagnetic pulse cannot go through it.
So it kind of just goes
So that's
around
why
it.
It just blocks this. That's why they call it Faraday bag,
Right.
because of that principle.
So Faraday cages are all different types. There's actually they originally called cages because they actually look like metal cages. And I guess this guy figured out exactly the dimensions of them, what it took to block things inside of it. They block not just EMPs, radio signals. I mean, a lot of different things that they can.
They're also, it's also been, I have one for my phone, so that if you have your phone in a Faraday bag and nobody knows, then the government doesn't know where you are and they can't hear you talking, and because they can hear us right now.
So that's the other thing with the Faraday is it blocks everything. So a lot of people have created cages that they use their even radios or whatever they're doing. They're actually in a Faraday, so it blocks like microphone. Like there's government or a lot of different agencies can get these microphones that kind of will transmit and can pick up you talking from inside your house, and it blocks somehow it blocks that with that. I guess the technology.
Really wealthy, really important wealthy people have their homes. I mean, political people have their homes so that nobody can hear. They can have private conversations inside their houses.
Right.
So can you talk in a Faraday
No, you have to take it out to use it. So it's just what she's saying is keeping you from being tracked, or they can actually access and probably are accessing your microphone on your phone right now. And somebody is. I mean,
Well,
some
you know,
people.
you've gotten ads like we were talking about Alaska, and then you start getting ads on your phone. Oh, you want to go to Alaska? Whatever. Yeah, and that's because they're tracking everything. I'm not using my I should be using my Faraday bag.
There's a joke in the 80s how they were talking about how they knew where Osama bin Laden was. And Joe said they know when you're going to the bathroom, they know everything.
There's airplanes that they can actually, from whatever thousands of feet in the air, that they can tell what you're saying in your house without spy planes or like ECWSs or something, EWIGs or something. They got those big, you ever see them on TV? They got these big discs on there. They can actually hear what you're saying inside your house or whatever. So fully, you're not completely protected. But the main important thing of a Faraday bag is it does no good if it's just laying there with nothing in it.
Yeah.
So if your equipment's in there and you have one, it's not going to protect you.
So I've heard that if there was like an EMP or whatever, if you found like a newer vehicle where everything's electronic, the windows, your locks, all that's electronic, none of that would work.
It knocks out certain aspects of it. Some people say vehicles aren't as prone. I don't know why, but I don't know if it's how close you are. You can get on the internet, and even specialists will argue of what's affected, what's not, how far away, how close, which cars, what years. Like cars that have computers go back a long way. Some people say it's only a certain year when they started making a certain computer that's affected. So I've heard, even alternators can be blown out with EMPs. So I don't really know what the right answer is at. I know they make, even on the government site, I forget the site it is, but it talks about, there's a company called EMP Shield that the government actually uses on all their devices that you can put in your car, and it's supposed to protect from EMP.
Oh, really?
And you can actually put it on your house, and it'll protect it as well. See ya. Thanks for coming. What? Oh yeah, I'll send it to you.
So I have this thing my father-in-law got me too, kind of as a joke, because I have a fear of tall bridges that go over water. Which now it's not so irrational since the barge hit the bridge, but anyways, it's one side of it's like this little piece of metal, I don't know, it's got a point on it, and you hit your windshield with it, and it would. And the other side of it is like a blade for you to cut yourself out of your seatbelt. But Jamie and I were talking, my husband and I were talking about this the other day, about how if the EMP knocked out everything in my car and my doors were locked, would I be able to get out of it? But I can't, because I got to just push my window and get out of it. But
There's safety features. If your car is locked, just think about when your car is locked. Usually, most cars, if you pull it once, it don't let you out. If you pull it a second time, it usually lets you out. At least my truck does. Our cars do.
What was the thing you were saying you can put on your cars?
It's called EMP Shield.
An EMP shield?
Yeah, and they make it. The same company makes them for your house as well. But you also have manual locks, override on your lock, so you can manually open them.
Actually, the headrest, you can take the headrest off, and it'll break the glass.
yeah.
But if you're somewhere, you usually have a manual lock, a manual way to unlock your car inside.
Yeah, the knob.
Mine's smooth though. Like I could manually lock it, but I don't know that I would be able to pull it back to unlock it. I'm trying to think of.
Yeah, you probably could. I think it's safety wise. I'm pretty sure that you will.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't manually lock it either, so.
Our car just goes lock down.
You somewhere inside usually have a lock, like a little
We have a lock on the door at the handle.
near the handle.
Yeah, mine's at the handle, but like I said,
Just
it's
not used to
Those
ever thinking about it because everybody uses a key fob.
the same
It's
with
like if
the
you ever had a key
flag,
fob.
there's nothing to-
I had a key fob one time not work. I'm like, oh, how am I gonna get in my car? I'm like, oh, I have a key. So we used to using key fobs, you forget you actually have keys that unlock.
Or anything that's not the cars, get automatic key off.
Does anybody want to get into practice radios, or everybody good with?
Breaker, breaker, 1, 2, 3.
Breaker, breaker, one,
This is
nine.
all, you know, the
Anybody
buses
want?
here use it
Raise
all.
hand, no hand? No?
I mean, I always got a choice.
Like,
One thing that didn't have in that slide was in radio etiquette, especially again, I'd say even with two people, is saying over when you're complete. When you're complete, whatever you're saying is say over at the end. That means you're done talking, and that means you should be releasing your mic, and then that tells the person that they can now speak. So saying over at the end allows them to know, okay, they can say something. And then when you're finished, officially, you say out. That means you're done with the conversation. But if you don't want to be officially, just say, okay, I'm done talking, goodbye. But I mean, over is just a good thing to say so people know it's now their turn to speak.
Are ham radios portable?
This is a ham radio. So there's ham radios come in handheld, mobile, which would be like a CB type looking radio, and then what they call base stations. So they're big units that sit usually in your house.
I've seen those before. I didn't know.
GMRSs come in handheld and mobile. So I don't know that they have really a base. Some people turn the bases or the mobiles into kind of inside their house to a base. Okay, so we're just about done. So, pre-emergency plan is, again, we kind of talked about all the different scenarios, but really the plan is just coming up with a plan. Like, what are you going to do if your house burns down? Where are you going to go if you get split up and you left your cell phones in the house and your radios? Now that you have radios, where do you go if your house burns down? Come up with your family, whoever you know. We're going to go to the neighbor's house. Everybody thinks, oh, it's simple until everybody runs out of the house and nobody knows where they're supposed to go when the house burns down. Or if you came home and the whole neighborhood's burned down, like something caught on fire, and I don't know that anything here, but it's happening a lot around the country where just a whole neighborhood burns down. Or
Hawaii.
Yeah.
That all happened.
Hawaii or California when a wildfire comes through in the whole neighborhood. And you come home and we don't go to the neighborhood. We may just go to somewhere that's 5 miles away, but we need to know that spot before the thing happens. So just come up with that place. Again, we kind of talked about some of the stuff already. House fires, major fire, medical, natural disaster, chemical spills, all these are examples. Pretty much, I always say like family emergency is just come when you can't get home or you have to leave it. Determine meeting places. So this is again close by. You can do McDonald's. I always suggest is try to pick something that every place has. So McDonald's. I think going through this in my head, let's say, well, maybe Dollar General. Like, well, that's probably not good because there's one every mile, and you never know which one to go to. But Walmart's, AutoZones, I think are very good because if you're in a disaster scenario, McDonald's and Walmart have food, and they could be very chaotic. So like AutoZones or an Advanced Auto that have them in every town, usually in every little town they have some type of chain, automotive chain, so maybe that would be a good spot. But thinking of where those are and going, and then pick one, again, north, south, east, west. I would say at least, this is actually a guideline I found on some kind of government site, was 50 miles outside of your city. 50 miles is about the span of a nuclear, not a nuclear bomb, but a nuclear power plant. We do have a nuclear power plant in this area, so 50 miles minimum could be how far you need to get away from that power plant if it ever had a meltdown or got attacked or whatever. Not counting some kind of nuclear attack. That scenario, nuclear is picking a place north, south, east, or west on each that 50-mile radius, or if you want to make it 100 miles to be safe, because wind direction can affect that and make it even further. So if there's a nuclear meltdown at a power plant, or if there, God forbid, a nuclear bomb, and there's wind going to the east, you obviously don't want to go 50 miles to the east. You probably want to go 50 miles to the west or north or something like that. So you should have all different routes planned on that direction. And everybody, again, knows exactly where that is. Pick primary, secondary routes to get to those locations. Have short-term plan after the family meets. Where are you going to go from there? Like, start thinking about that. Like, okay, we have to leave our house. We're all meeting up here. Once we all get there, where are we going to go from there? Are we going to go to Texas? Are we going to go to, a relative we know in Virginia? Like, have some plans in place of where would you go if you can't go back home once everybody meets. And then think about worst case scenario. I mean, you go to 100 miles away. Everybody knows that we're supposed to meet here. We don't have cell phones. Maybe our radios aren't working. Maybe one person don't have it. We get to that meeting place. How long does everybody know that we're going to wait there? Because if you got 5 people going to meet at this place and only 4 people show up, what's the timeline before everybody knows that you're going on to that other place? Because if not, people aren't going to know what to do. And you're not going to be like, no, we got to wait longer. No, we said after 24 hours, we're going to here. And if you don't know these things, and the whole family doesn't know these things, everyone's just going to be waiting and not knowing. It's going to be arguments, it's going to be all kinds of issues of just trying to figure out what to do next. So really just coming up with a plan, write it down. I would highly suggest writing it down and making printouts and keep it in your vehicle. And you just know the plan. Everybody knows what the plan is. That's it.
There's emergency plans that the state provides, because like running a facility, I had to make an emergency plan. So the state has a step-by-step for North Carolina places you can go and how you can outreach, especially for facilities, but there is one for families on the state's DOT website. You can make up your own emergency plan. It takes you through the whole entire thing, and you can print it out and have it.
Yeah, that's good.
We had to do this for the residents. We had to have a evacuation plan, and you had to know how much water you had to have on hand.
So yeah, I think there's lots of different websites that do that and come up with it and just know. Again, have it in the vehicle and then talk about it also. And then maybe think about updating it. Because if you picked an AutoZone in, whatever town, and you haven't looked at it lately, it may not even be there anymore. It may be a hospital now. And you go there and everyone looking and it's no longer there. Just refresh people's memory. Have it in the vehicle. Everybody knows. A lot of people, you can get really deep into it. You can, on the radio, it's like, hey, go to page 3 and we're doing option 2. So people don't know that we're meeting at AutoZone and they're waiting on you to get there. So, because radios are not, there is some ways to make them secure, but mainly it's just, if people don't know exactly what you're talking about, it's good enough. Just make sure the other person you're talking to knows what you're talking about. Any questions on anything?
Random. What is J in military?
What is what?
J.
Juliet.
So if I do Juliet, and you'd be Echo, and I'd be Juliet. I was wondering when you said was Hey, I'm Charlie.
Okay.
You said for Myra was
Myra Perez is Papa.
Papa. Never heard, like, you hear the beginning more so than you hear the and Roger.
I'm Echo 1, he's Echo 2.
So Roger is Roger is if you give a message in radios, Roger's a response, meaning that you understood what you understood what they said. Lima Charlie means like if you're doing a radio test and you're trying to, it's like, hey, did you understand what I'm saying? Did you hear what I'm saying? Lima Charlie. That means I read you loud and clear. Like it means you're loud enough that I can hear, because sometimes there's a distance problem and it's clear enough that I can understand you. So it has two meanings. So usually it's like kind of proper military is I read you loud and I read you Lima Charlie. But you can just say loud and clear. But it has two meanings to a radio check. Any other questions just in general, not related to
What's your bags look like?
what's my bags?
Your backpacks?
So these are bags. So I have various bags. This is a bag I use for if I'm going, usually if I'm going to a conference or any kind of event, you'll see me like in this bag that doesn't look it just looks very sleek, non-military, but it's got lots of pockets. I can carry lots of gear in it at the same time. Different first aid, whatever I need to carry. Usually I'll have probably some kind of pistol in there or something if I'm not carrying it on my body. I'll have a knife. This is a bag I keep in my truck actually. Pretty big some stuff out. This one's just a bigger bag. I forget the cubic inches. But lots of pockets, interior pockets. Again, you want lots of pockets. You want a big pouch. These have multiple pockets. Just the more pockets you can individualize stuff and kind of. That's another thing. I always say family. So is that SOP is a standard operating procedure. That's a military term. So come up with SOPs for your family. So if you have bags and you both get the same bag, is everybody put the stuff in the same pouches. That way, if you're getting in her bag or vice versa, you know, and he's whatever, you got his bag, and he's not conscious, you know exactly where stuff is. You're not searching through the bag if it's a, you know.
You're putting money in.
I took that out first.
You're not gonna tell me that.
This bag, so bags are all over the place on price. Actually, one of the few times I went to Marshall's with my wife, they had this bag for like $25, and it's probably like a $100 bag. So just keep your eye out. They don't keep your eye out, and you just never know what you'll find at different places. I like it because it has different handles. You can just carry it. Sometimes you're not just carrying it on your back. You just want to lift it up and carry it. But this is definitely carry 3 days worth of stuff. I could probably stuff enough for 2 people in here, be tight, but I could probably carry 2 people worth of stuff. This one's going to be I call this more of for me, it's more of a day bag.
Now I know what you had in your black backpack. In class.
Don't mess with me.
Right.
But yeah. Any other questions?
What's the red thing beside the bags?
This is first aid kit that I actually carry. So it's definitely more comprehensive. I carry this in my vehicle. So everything's very labeled. Let's say gloves. It tells you right everything that's on it. Let's say glass artisan, different tools. Like they just tell you, it's very categorized and tell you what they're for. Any wound closure, tape. I mean, everything is labeled and what it is.
You bought the whole thing.
Yeah, I bought the whole kit like this. There's also, I don't think this one does it. I think the one actually that David Santiago that was here was talking about they have one that just says they have everything categorized into blood, air. Like it's very pushed, like you know what, so you can just know these are it's even color coded. to know what you're looking for, so it's easy to find the stuff. So it's pretty, I thought that was a pretty neat idea. So normally this is my medic, I think, and I think David uses something Charter, something like that. And both of them you can buy kits, and then you can buy refill kits. So if you actually use the stuff like on a day-to-day basis, you don't just want to keep using your stuff and then it's all gone, so you can actually just refill it without buying the whole entire kit again. I think this particular kit on sale was like a kind of Black Friday type of sale, was like $100. They have them full kits for probably $300. I think that you can actually do surgery with, like minor surgeries with them. So you can do full kits. I don't think I'm gonna be doing any surgery, so I thought it'll be my excuse why I'm not gonna do surgery because I don't have the equipment.
You're not gonna be on TV doing surgery or performing the person in the
No.
hospital telling you what to do.
I'm the person that has to focus to not help you out so I don't pass out. Usually in emergency, I'm like, I can focus that out, but for myself, like giving blood, yeah, I'm not best. I'm the person that's focusing. I'm focusing, but I'm focusing on not passing out. Like I'm talking or thinking about stuff, trying to talk to the person while I'm not looking.
And I'm the one running in the fire, not caring.
His son was the
I'm the
same
one that
way.
asked if they can videotape my surgery so I can watch it later. Yeah.
Yeah. Nicolette and Josh's son fell at